My name is Oliver, and before the sky cracked open, my greatest talent was carrying boxes at a convenience store without dropping the eggs. After the monsters arrived, that talent became useless. Nobody cared if I could stack canned peaches in perfect little towers. Nobody cared if I could memorize the price of instant noodles. The only thing people respected was strength. The world had turned into one giant hunting ground, and every human learned the same rule fast. Kill monsters, take their cores, trade those cores for weapons, potions, and protection. If you had a strong core supply, guilds smiled at you. If you had no cores, they looked through you like you were already a ghost. I was 20 years old, skinny from skipping meals, and ranked so low that the testing crystal at the city gate blinked once, coughed smoke, and printed the word unstable like it was embarrassed for me. The hunters laughed. A guy named Parker laughed the loudest. Parker was not the strongest fighter in the city, but he acted like the apocalypse had been arranged for his personal entertainment. He wore a red jacket stitched with monster leather, carried twin hatchets on his belt, and had the kind of grin that made people check whether their wallet was still there. He loved picking on anyone weaker than him, and I happened to be his favorite punching bag. Whenever a hunting crew returned through the eastern gate with sacks of glowing cores, Parker would toss the smallest one at my feet. "Careful, Oliver," he would say, "that slime core might overpower you." Everybody would laugh, and I would pick up the core anyway. That was the part they never understood. A core was a core. Even a pathetic one had power inside it. I just didn't know what to do with mine yet. Back then, most people used monster cores the normal way. Fire hound cores went into flame swords, stone boar cores became shield plates, slime cores were crushed into cheap healing gel. Goblin cores were used for alarm charms, wolf cores powered scent compasses, ghost cores sold for so much that a weak person like me could only see one if it was sealed in glass. There were rules to it, crafting recipes, guild prices, approved vendors, the same boring cycle, kill, sell, craft, repeat. But I was too weak to kill anything bigger than a wet sock. So when a swarm of corpse beetles spilled into the outer streets and the guild alarms started ringing, I did what every proud future legend would do. I ran. I ran until my lungs burned. I ran past collapsed apartment blocks, past a broken billboard showing a smiling family eating cereal, past the place where the subway entrance had turned into a crater. I kept going until I reached the old central train station on the west side of the city. Nobody went there anymore. The tracks had twisted during the first monster surge. The ceiling had half fallen in. The waiting hall smelled like rainwater, rust, and old electricity. Perfect place for a weak guy to hide and pretend he had a plan. Beetles clicked somewhere outside, scraping their legs across the pavement. I shoved a metal bench against the station doors, crawled behind a ticket kiosk, and pressed both hands over my mouth. That was when I saw the vending machine. It stood beside the old platform entrance, half buried in dust, leaning at an angle like it had survived a war and still refused to clock out. The glass front was cracked. The buttons had faded labels. The screen flickered with green static. I expected it to be dead. Then the screen blinked. "Insert monster core." I stared at it. The words appeared again, slower this time. "Insert monster core." At first I thought the station gas had poisoned me. Then a beetle slammed into the blocked doors, hard enough to rattle the kiosk. My heart tried to climb out of my chest. I dug into my pocket and pulled out the slime core Parker had tossed at me that morning. It was the size of a marble, soft blue, faintly warm. I had exactly one treasure, and my brilliant survival plan was to feed it to haunted junk food furniture. I shoved the core into the coin slot. The vending machine made a sound like a dragon choking on a toaster. Lights flashed behind the cracked glass. The buttons all sparked at once. A metal coil turned. Something dropped into the tray with a clunk. I reached in and pulled out a soda can. It was cold. The label was silver and blue, with a cartoon slime wearing sunglasses. Temporary slime body, 10 minutes. I read it 3 times. Then the beetles broke the doors. They flooded in like black water, shells clicking, mandibles snapping, dozens of them crawling over the benches and floor tiles. One saw me and screamed. I screamed back because I was not emotionally ready for fame. Then I popped the can and drank. It tasted like blue raspberry, battery acid, and panic. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then my bones turned into jelly. My entire body melted. Not in a painful way, in a ridiculous way. My arms stretched like rubber ropes. My legs sloshed into puddles. My skin became clear blue slime. I could still see. I could still think. I just happened to be a human-shaped blob, wearing my own terrified expression. The first beetle leapt at my face. It passed straight through my head and got stuck. I blinked. Beetle thrashed inside my slime body, completely confused, its legs spinning like broken scissors. I had no idea what I was doing, so I punched it. My fist stretched 20 feet, slapped the beetle against the wall, bounced off, hit another beetle, ricocheted off a vending map, and accidentally knocked down a ceiling speaker. The speaker landed on a third beetle with a crunch. For the first time since the apocalypse began, I laughed. Not because it was easy. Because it was stupid. And stupid was apparently my element. Beetles charged. I threw myself forward, but instead of running, my body splashed across the floor like spilled soda. Their claws sliced through me and did nothing. I reformed behind them, stretched both arms around a bench, and used it like a giant fly swatter. One swing launched 5 beetles into the ticket machines. Then I learned I could split. Beetle bit my shoulder, and a chunk of slime popped off. Instead of falling dead, the chunk wobbled, grew tiny eyes, and slapped the beetle in the face. I stared. The tiny slime stared back. Then I made 10 more. 10 little slime versions of me bounced around the station, squeaking like toy hammers, smacking beetles, distracting them, tripping them, and stealing their balance. I used my stretched arm to swing from a hanging sign, kicked off the ceiling, became a blue cannonball, and flattened the biggest beetle against the old information booth. When the 10 minutes ended, I fell onto the floor as a normal human, soaked in slime-scented sweat, surrounded by dead beetles and glowing cores. I lay there for a while, breathing hard. Then I rolled onto my side and looked at the vending machine. The cracked screen flickered. Insert monster core. That was the moment my life stopped being sad and became extremely illegal looking. I gathered every beetle core I could find. Most of them were tiny black stones with yellow sparks inside. I fed one into the machine. The coils spun. A can dropped. Temporary shell skin, 5 minutes. I drank it. My skin hardened into glossy black armor plates, my fingers became little claws, and when I curled up, I could roll across the station like a bowling ball with trust issues. I fed another beetle core. Temporary wall cling, 5 minutes. Suddenly I could stick to any surface. I climbed the station wall, crawled across the ceiling, and hung above the vending machine like a very underpaid nightmare. The vending machine did not give normal skills. It gave monster instincts in carbonated form. And because it was broken, the results were not clean. They were weird, messy, flashy, perfect. I'm mourning I had invented a new fighting style based entirely on panic, fizzy drinks, and terrible ideas. Slime body let me absorb hits and stretch. Shell skin let me crash through things. Wall cling let me ambush from above. When I mixed slime body and shell skin, I became a bouncing armored blob that could ricochet down the train tracks and smash monsters from impossible angles. When I used wall cling while half slime, I could spread across the ceiling like living glue and drop on enemies as a giant slap. I was still weak. But now I was weak with options. That afternoon, I returned to the eastern gate with a bag full of beetle cores and a bruise-colored smile. Parker was there leaning against a supply crate while his crew bragged about killing 2 claw wolves. He saw me and raised an eyebrow. "Look who survived," he said. "Did the beetles get bored?" I dropped the bag on the trading table. The cores spilled out. Every laugh died. The vendor stared at the pile, then at me, then at the pile again. Parker's grin twitched. I smiled politely because that was cheaper than revenge and twice as annoying. "I found a hobby," I said. The vendor paid me enough for food, bandages, and a rusty short blade. I bought all 3, then I bought something nobody else wanted. A sack of slime cores. Parker watched me like I had started eating screws. "You're wasting money," he said. "Slime cores are trash." I nodded. "That's why they match me." He laughed, but softer this time. I went back to the station with 20 slime cores and the kind of excitement that makes bad decisions feel holy. The vending machine ate every core without complaint. Temporary slime body. Temporary acid spit. Temporary bounce bones. Temporary pocket stomach. Temporary slime clone. That last one made me sit down. The can had a smiling slime holding a tiny flag. The effect lasted 3 minutes. I drank it, and a full copy of me popped out of my shoulder like a soap bubble. He looked at me. I looked at him. He whispered, "We are extremely handsome." Then he dissolved into goo because the timer ran out. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. For 3 days, I trained in the station like a lunatic. I made slime clones and used them as decoys. I shot acid spit at empty cans until I could melt a hole through a monster shell. I used bounce bones to launch myself from wall to wall, then used slime body to survive when I miscalculated and hit a pillar face first. Pocket stomach let me store small objects inside my body while transformed, so I began hiding knives, cores, cans, and once an entire brick because I wanted to see if I could. The answer was yes. My stomach made brick noises for 6 hours. The most important discovery came by accident. I drank slime body 5 times in one day. On the 5th can, the timer did not say 10 minutes anymore. It said 11. At first I thought the cracked label was wrong. So I tested it. I drank another 12 minutes. Another 13. The vending machine was not just giving temporary skills. My body was learning them. Compatibility. That word appeared on the screen after I pressed my palm against it. Slime body compatibility, 18%. I stared at the number until my eyes hurt. If I drank enough of the same skill, it lasted longer. If I kept going, maybe it would never end. I did not sleep that night. I hunted slimes outside the drainage tunnel until sunrise. People mocked slime hunters. They said slimes were only dangerous if you tripped and drowned in one, but they forgot something important. Weak monsters gathered in huge numbers because nobody bothered clearing them. And if you could turn into slime, slimes became not enemies, but training equipment. I lured them into the station with food scraps, then drank slime body and wrestled them like I was auditioning for the dumbest sports league on earth. I let them hit me, wrap me, swallow me, bounce me around. Every time my compatibility rose, my control improved, my arms stretched farther, my clones lasted longer, my body reformed faster. By the end of the week, I could turn one finger into slime without drinking. Just one finger. It wiggled. I cried a little. Not because it was impressive. Because it was mine. The first skill I ever earned. Then the city's West Market got attacked by goblins. Goblins were not strong, but they were cruel. They loved traps, wire snares, pit holes, stolen bombs, poison needles. Hunting crews hated them because a goblin nest could turn a confident warrior into a screaming floor decoration. I arrived late, not as a hero, but as the guy who wanted cores before the guild claimed them all. The market was chaos, stalls burned, people hid behind carts, goblins darted between shadows, laughing with jagged teeth. A few hunters tried pushing forward, but traps kept snapping under their feet. Parker was there too because of course he was. He had a bandage on his cheek and a dead goblin at his feet. When he saw me holding a rusty blade, his eyes widened with fake concern. "This is not a slime puddle, Oliver," he said. "Go home before you become bait." I looked past him at the alley. Something tugged in my nose. No, not my nose. My slime instinct. The floor felt wrong. A wire crossed the alley entrance, nearly invisible. Above it, 3 bottles of fire powder hung from a sign. I had not drunk a goblin can yet, but I had a bag of vending machine drinks under my coat, and my brain was starting to connect things faster than my fear could stop me. I pulled out a can labeled Temporary Trap Sense. Goblin Core. Green label, angry cartoon goblin pointing at a hole. I drank. The world changed. Every trap lit up in my mind like red string. Tripwires, pressure plates, falling bricks, hidden darts, weak roof tiles, oil patches, even a loose nail sticking out of a crate. The entire market became a puzzle, and for once, my useless habit of noticing tiny details became a weapon. Parker stepped toward the alley. I grabbed his jacket and yanked him back. He snarled, "Touch me again and I'll cut your hand off." The fire bottles crashed down exactly where he would have stood. His face went pale. I smiled, "You're welcome." Then I ran into the alley. Not straight. Never straight. I bounced between traps like I was dancing through a death carnival. A goblin threw a knife. I used slime finger to catch it, spun, and flicked it into a wire. The wire released a swinging log. I ducked. The log smashed 2 goblins into a fruit stand. Another goblin laughed from a rooftop and kicked a barrel of oil toward me. I used shell skin, curled into a ball, rolled up the barrel and launched myself off it, while Kling grabbed the side of a building, slime arms stretched to a hanging banner. I swung across the market, landed behind the rooftop goblin, and whispered, "Nice trap." Then I stepped aside. The goblin triggered its own roof plate and got launched into a pile of cabbages. I did not beat the goblins with strength. I made the market beat them for me. Trap Sense turned every alley into a weapon. Slime Body let me squeeze through gaps they thought were safe. Wall Cling let me ignore the floor. Shell Skin let me trigger traps without dying. By the time the guild hunters realized what was happening, goblins were flying everywhere, traps were exploding in neat little chains, and I was sliding under a stall with a grin so wide it hurt. Then the goblin boss appeared. It was taller than me, covered in bone charms, carrying a hammer made from a broken streetlight. It saw me ruining its traps and screamed like I had insulted its grandmother. The hammer came down. I drank Bounce Bones. The impact launched me straight up instead of crushing me. I spun in the air, drank Slime Clone, and 3 copies of me popped out like blue fireworks. We all landed around the boss. The copies pointed left. I went right. Boss swung at the copies, and they burst into slime on its face. While it clawed the goo away, I used Trap Sense to spot the biggest pressure plate in the market, the one connected to a buried fire powder stash. I stretched my slime arm around the boss's ankle, pulled with everything I had, and shouted the only battle plan my clones would have understood. Step on the shiny thing. The boss stepped on the shiny thing. The explosion lifted it 20 feet into the air. I used shell skin, jumped after it, curled into a spinning black ball, and smashed it back down through a vegetable cart. When the smoke cleared, the boss core rolled across the ground and stopped against my boot. Nobody laughed. Parker stared at me with a face like he had swallowed a beetle. I picked up the core. Then I picked up every goblin core I could find. That night, the vending machine gave me a dozen Trap Sense cans and 1 strange bonus drink. Temporary trap pocket, 2 minutes. I drank it and discovered I could store a triggered trap inside a bubble of slime, carry it around, and release it later. That was the first time I realized the machine was not just making me stronger. It was making me unfair. And I loved it. The next problem came from humans. Monsters were simple. They tried to bite you, crush you, burn you, or make you regret having skin. Humans smiled first. A week after the market fight, I returned to the trading gate with goblin cores and beetle cores. The vendors recognized me now. They still did not respect me, but their eyes followed my bags. That was enough for Parker. He cornered me behind the core exchange with 3 men from his crew. None of them wore heavy armor. Parker hated anything that slowed him down. He liked speed, threats, and making people afraid before they understood the game. Funny thing, he said, tapping 1 hatchet against his palm. You were useless, then you disappeared, then you came back with cores. That makes me curious. I shifted the bag on my shoulder. Curiosity is healthy. So is sharing. The 3 men spread out, blocking the exits. Old Oliver would have apologized for existing. New Oliver counted angles. Brick wall behind me, drain pipe on the left, trash heap on the right, 3 attackers, 1 leader, 2 witnesses pretending not to watch from the street, city guards 2 corners away, probably bored. My pocket held slime body, trap pocket, wall cling, and a goblin kin with 8 minutes left. Parker stepped close. Tell me where you're getting the cores, he said. I gave him the most harmless smile I owned. From monsters. He grabbed my collar. The moment his fingers touched me, I activated Slime Finger and let my shirt turn slick. His grip slipped. I fell backward dramatically, bounced off the wall with bounce bones, and landed on the drain pipe like a circus criminal. Parker's men lunged. I dropped a trap pocket. Earlier that morning, I had stored a goblin spring snare inside it. The slime bubble popped under their feet. The snare exploded upward and yanked all 3 men into the air by their ankles. They hung there spinning, yelling, weapons clattering onto the ground. Parker looked up. I looked down from the pipe. The city guards arrived at the perfect moment because I had bounced a pebble down the alley 5 seconds earlier to hit their warning bell. Parker tried to act innocent, which was difficult while his crew hung upside down in a goblin trap and I had fresh finger marks on my collar. I slid down the pipe, landed beside the guards, and pointed at Parker with the calmest expression of my life. They attacked me, I said. Parker's face twisted. You set this up. I nodded after you decided to be predictable. Guards dragged his crew away. Parker paid a fine in cores and got released later because the city needed every fighter it could get, but something important had changed. He stopped laughing in public. He watched. That was more dangerous. I knew he would come again. So I got ready. The vending machine had become my secret base, my teacher, my weapon shop, and possibly my worst nutritional decision. I cleaned the station, sealed the doors, repaired the old lights with scavenged wires, and turned the platform into a training arena. Dylan found me there on the 9th night. He was an old repairman who had lived in the tunnels since the first collapse. Gray beard, oil-stained jacket, missing 2 fingers on his left hand, and eyes sharp enough to cut tape. I caught him trying to steal a can from the vending tray. I was hanging from the ceiling at the time. He looked up at me. I looked down at him. Neither of us screamed, which felt mature. Dylan said, "That machine yours?" I said, "It adopted me." He nodded like that made sense. Dylan did not become my mentor. Mentors give speeches. Dylan gave me wire cutters, bad coffee, and insults that were somehow helpful. He knew the station better than anyone. He showed me storage rooms, emergency tunnels, old maintenance shafts, and the train control room where cracked screens still flickered with maps of the dead subway lines. When he saw the vending machine eat a monster core and drop a skill soda, he stared for a full minute. Then he said, "That's broken in a profitable direction." I trusted him immediately. Dylan helped me reinforce the station, not with fancy walls but with nonsense. Tripwires connected to empty cans, slime-coated floors that became slick on command, collapsible panels. Fake core crates filled with beetle shells, a platform sign rigged to swing like a giant club. If anyone tried to raid my station, they would not find a fortress. They would find a prank with teeth. Then Selene arrived. Selene ran the black market from a moving food truck with no wheels. Nobody knew how she moved it. She sold strange cores, broken artifacts, maps to monster nests, and hot noodles that could make a grown hunter cry. She was not friendly. Friendly people did not survive long, but she was honest in a sharp way. She found the station because Dylan owed her batteries. I found her standing in front of the vending machine, reading the screen with narrowed eyes. "You're the slime kid," she said. I crossed my arms. "I prefer carbonated disaster specialist." She glanced at the bag of empty cans in the corner. "That explains the smell." Selene became my supplier, but never my sidekick. She did not follow me into fights or cheer from rooftops. She appeared when profit smelled interesting, sold me cores at painful prices, and vanished before trouble noticed her. From her, I bought my first wolf core. It was silver, warm, and pulsing like a heartbeat. The vending machine accepted it with a low growl. Temporary smell tracking, 10 minutes. I drank it and almost fainted. The world exploded into scent. Rust, dust, oil, slime residue, Dylan's coffee, Selene's noodles, old blood under the platform tiles, rain on concrete, monster breath from the tunnels, fear, metal, mold, and something sweet hiding below the station. I followed that sweet scent through a maintenance hatch, down a ladder, and into a sealed tunnel. There I found a nest of crystal rats. They were small, fast, and made entirely of shimmering stone. Their cores sold well because crafters used them for light charms. For normal hunters, crystal rats were annoying. For me, they were a buffet of target practice. I drank wall cling, smell tracking, and slime clone. Then I became the worst day of their tiny lives. My clones ran across the walls, leaving scent trails in every direction. The rats chased the wrong smells. I hung from the ceiling and dropped shell skin marbles I had shaped from my own slime-coated beetle armor. The marbles bounced, flashed, and scattered the rats into trap pockets. When the biggest rat tried to escape through a crack, I turned my arm into slime, reached through, grabbed its tail, and yanked it back like pulling a plug from a sink. By midnight, I had enough crystal cores to buy a month of food. Instead, I fed half of them to the machine. Temporary prism skin, 6 minutes. Temporary flash burst, 3 minutes. Temporary light bend, 1 minute. Light bend was weak at first. It made me blurry around the edges like heat above asphalt, but blurry was all I needed. I combined it with slime clone and created my first fake army. 20 shimmering Oliver shapes filled the platform, all moving a half second behind me. Dylan walked in, saw them, and dropped his coffee. Every clone turned to him at once. He said, "I'm too old for this." That became our security setup. Parker tested it 2 nights later. He came with 6 fighters, no guild flag, no warning, and enough confidence to qualify as a medical condition. They slipped through the service entrance, quiet as knives. Smell tracking woke me before they reached the platform. I was already on the ceiling, drinking flash burst. Parker stepped into the station and froze. 20 blurry versions of me stood across the platform. One waved. Parker raised his hatchets. "I know you're hiding." All 20 said, "That's a strong guess." They charged. The station became a pinball machine. I released the slick slime floor. 2 fighters fell instantly. A swinging sign knocked a third into a bench. Parker threw a hatchet at the nearest clone, and it burst into harmless light. I dropped from above, activated shell skin, bounced off Parker's shoulder and ricocheted into the wall. Instead of crashing, I turned slime, flattened, and sprang back. Parker barely dodged. His eyes finally showed fear. I did not try to beat them quickly. That would have been boring. I made them chase me through every trap Dylan and I had built. Down the stairs, across the old tracks, through the maintenance hall, around a flooded kiosk, past a row of lockers rigged to burst open with slime balloons. Every time they thought they had cornered me, I phased half my body through a gap or bounced away. Every time Parker shouted orders, a clone copied his voice from behind him and made his men trip over each other. One fighter swung a chain at me. I caught it with slime arm, wrapped it around a pillar, and used bounce bones to fling myself around the pillar so fast the chain spun him like a festival ride. Another tried to stab me. I let the blade enter slime body, stored it in pocket stomach, and gave it back handle first by spitting it into a trash can 10 feet away. By the time the guards arrived, Parker's crew was glued to the floor with slime, covered in glowing dust, and surrounded by 20 fake Olivers applauding politely. Parker was the only one still standing. He stared at me from the far side of the platform, chest heaving. "You think this makes you strong," he said. I walked toward him slowly, clones fading behind me. "No," I said, "this makes you tired." Then the platform sign swung down and tapped him on the back of the head. "Not hard enough to kill. Hard enough to make a point." He dropped like a sack of potatoes. The guards dragged him away again. This time, nobody called it a misunderstanding. The station rumors spread by morning. A weak kid had turned the abandoned platform into a monster maze. A vending machine sold him powers. He could split into copies, melt through attacks, smell enemies through walls, and make people defeat themselves. Some said I had a secret guild. Some said I was a monster wearing human skin. One old man at the market said I was a haunted soda commercial. That one hurt because it was close. Attention brought danger, but it also brought cores. People started leaving strange cores near the station entrance, with notes asking for help. A mother brought me a mud crab core and asked me to clear the monster nest under her apartment. Baker brought bat cores and begged me to recover flour from a warehouse. A group of children delivered 3 shiny frog cores and asked if I could make it rain candy. I could not. But I did use frog jump to leap onto a roof and rescue their cat, which made me more famous than killing the goblin boss. Every core taught me something. Bat core gave echo pulse, letting me map dark spaces with sound. Mud crab gave clamp grip, letting my hands lock onto anything. Frog core gave spring legs, which turned every jump into a dramatic entrance. Centipede core gave extra step, a skill so disgusting and useful that I refused to explain how it felt. It let me move as if I had invisible legs pushing me from impossible angles. Combined with spider thread step later, it would become one of my signature moves. At first, the skill drinks lasted minutes. Then compatibility started stacking. Slime body reached 50%, and I could turn my arms liquid without drinking. Trap sense reached 40%, and I could feel danger like an itch behind my teeth. Smell tracking reached 30%, and I could recognize Parker's cheap smoke sent 2 streets away. Light bends stayed weak, but even 1 minute of blur could change a fight. The first time I made slime body permanent for 10 seconds without a can, I stood in front of the vending machine and raised my wobbly blue hand. Dylan watched from the bench. "Congratulations," he said, "you're pudding with ambition." I bowed. Then came the wolf pack. A pack of iron wolves moved into the northern rail yard, cutting off supply routes and tearing apart anyone who tried to pass. Their fur was metal gray. Their teeth could chew through car doors. The city guild promised to clear them, but the guild had bigger problems and smaller courage. Iris, the leader of the largest local guild, finally noticed me then. Iris was calm, polished, and dangerous in a quiet way. She did not shout like Parker. She did not need to. When she entered a room, people stepped aside because they could feel the weight around her. Her guild controlled most of the good crafting stations and safe walls. She wore a long dark coat, not armor, and carried a thin sword that hummed with storm energy. He invited me to a meeting at the guild hall. I went because refusing powerful people only works after you know where all the exits are. Iris studied me across a clean table while her officers stood nearby pretending they were not measuring my bones. "You have unusual methods," he said. "I drink monster soda and fall on people." Her mouth barely moved. It might have been a smile. "The rail yard must be cleared. Work under my banner and you will be paid." I knew what under my banner meant. It meant she wanted the credit, the cores, and maybe the station afterward. She was not evil like Parker. That made her harder. Iris was the kind of person who could take everything from you while making it sound reasonable. I nodded slowly. "I'll clear the rail yard," I said. "I won't wear your banner." The room became cold. An officer stepped forward, but Iris lifted one hand. "You are confident." "No," I said, "I'm prepared." That night, I went to the rail yard alone. Not because I was brave. Because people watching would ruin the trick. The The iron wolves moved between rusted trains, their eyes glowing blue, paws silent on gravel. I perched on a signal tower with smell tracking active, echo pulse in my throat, trap sense buzzing in my skull, and 6 slime clones ready in my pockets like bad ideas waiting for permission. The pack leader was huge, nearly the size of a car, with spikes along its spine. It sniffed the air and looked straight at me. I waved. Then I jumped. Spring legs launched me from the tower. Wall cling caught the side of a train car. I ran across it sideways, dropped a flash burst behind me, and let the whole rail yard explode in white light. The wolves howled. I moved. Smell tracking told me where each wolf was before I saw it. Trap sense warned me when one circled behind. Slime body absorbed a bite that would have taken my leg. I stretched my arm around a rail signal, swung under a train, and released 3 clones in different directions. The wolves chased the scent trails. They were fast. I was worse. I had spent days studying the rail yard. Old switches still controlled parts of the track. Some cars had loose brakes. Some containers were filled with shattered glass. The wolves thought they were hunting a weak human. I turned the rail yard into an instrument and played it with explosions. The clone ran past a switch. I pulled the lever with slime arm. A loose cargo car rolled downhill and slammed into 2 wolves. I used shell skin to bounce off the car roof, launched acid spit into a hanging crane hook, melted the cable, and dropped a net of rusted chain across another wolf. Then I used clamp grip to grab the chain, spring legs to leap, and slime stretch to yank the wolf into a stack of barrels. The pack leader lunged. I drank prism skin. Its teeth scraped my crystal hide, sending sparks into the dark. The force launched me backward, exactly where I wanted to go. I hit a train door, turned slime, slipped through the broken window, and came out the other side with 2 clones attached to my shoulders. The clones split off and ran. The leader followed the real smell. Smart dog. So I changed the smell. I had stored wolf musk inside a slime bubble earlier after finding their den. I popped it over a clone, and suddenly the clone smelled like me wearing wolf perfume during a nervous breakdown. The leader hesitated. 1 second was enough. I triggered trap pocket. The stored goblin pit trap opened under the leader's front paws. Not a real pit, not deep enough for a monster that big, but it stole balance. While it stumbled, I used spring legs to launch straight up, shell skin to harden, slime body to expand, and bounce bones to spin. I became a black-blue drill of bad decisions. I smashed into the leader's skull, so hard the rail yard rang like a bell. It dropped. The remaining wolves backed away. For a moment, I thought they would attack again. Then I used smell tracking and growled with the leader's scent still on me. I had no idea what I said in wolf language. Apparently it was rude. They ran. When I dragged the Iron Wolf leader core back to the city gate at sunrise, Iris was waiting. So was half the city. Parker stood in the crowd, newly released, jaw tight, eyes dark. Iris looked at the core, then at me. You did it alone. I wanted to say something cool, something legendary, something worthy of the moment. Instead, I sneezed because wolf musk was still in my hair. The crowd cheered anyway. Fame changed things faster than strength. People stopped calling me useless. They called me unpredictable, which sounded better but meant the same thing with fear added. Vendors saved weird cores for me. Children pretended to drink soda cans and bounce off walls. Dylan started charging people 1 core just to look at the station from the doorway, until I made him stop after he charged a crying man twice. The vending machine rewarded the Iron Wolf core with a silver can. Temporary iron bite, 4 minutes. I drank it and my teeth turned metallic. I bit through a steel pipe. Then I spent the rest of the night regretting the flavor of steel pipe. More important, wolf cores push smell tracking higher. At 70% compatibility, I could track emotions. Fear smelled sour. Lies smelled like burnt sugar. Greed smelled like hot coins. Parker smelled like all 3. Iris smelled like rain before lightning. Selene smelled like pepper, oil, and secrets. Dylan smelled like coffee, wire, and old grief. I did not ask about the grief. Everyone deserved 1 locked door. The next core that changed everything was a ghost core. Selene brought it in a lead-line lunchbox and refused to touch it directly. Do not drink whatever that machine makes unless you are ready to become a problem, she said. I took the core. I was born halfway there. The vending machine went silent when I inserted it. No sparks, no grinding, just a cold mist curling from the tray. The can that dropped was pale white. Temporary wall phasing, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. That was nothing. That was everything. I drank it. Cold rushed through my body, the station lights dimmed, my hands turned transparent. I stepped toward the wall and pushed. My face passed through concrete. I saw wires, old pipes, insects, darkness, and the other side. Then the timer ended while my nose was still inside the wall. I slammed backward, fell on my butt, and Dylan laughed for 10 minutes. Wall phasing was dangerous. If the timer ran out wrong, I could lose a hand or worse. So I trained carefully, which for me meant painting lines on the station wall and repeatedly sticking my arm through while screaming. Within a day, I could phase through doors. Within 3, I could phase through floors for 2 seconds and drop behind enemies. Within 5, I discovered the funniest possible combination. Ghost phasing plus slime body. Normal person phasing through a wall had to be precise. A slime person did not. I could flatten, seep, blur, and pour through cracks in reality like water escaping a cup. When the timer ran out, slime body reformed around the mistake. It still hurt, but it hurt like getting slapped by winter instead of getting chopped in half. Then I combined ghost phasing with pocket stomach. I could hide inside objects. Not forever, not comfortably, but long enough. That ability saved the South Shelter. Gang had taken control of a supply warehouse near the shelter. They were not monsters, but they were worse in the way only humans could be. They stole medicine, trapped families inside, and sold protection with knives pressed to people's throats. The city guards were stretched thin. The guild ignored it because the gang had not touched anyone important. One woman came to the station with a cracked voice and a box of frog cores. "My brother is in there," she said, "please." I took the cores. Not as payment. As ammunition. I scouted the warehouse with smell tracking, 20 armed people inside, hostages in the loading area, traps on the entrances, a guard on the roof. Parker was not with them, but I smelled his smoke on the front gate. He had been there. That made the problem personal. I did not charge through the door. That was Iris's style. I became a crate. More exactly, I used slime body to squeeze inside an empty supply crate. Ghost phased through the warehouse wall with the crate around me, then reformed in a storage aisle between boxes of canned beans. From outside, I looked like inventory. The gang leader walked past and kicked my crate. I nearly sneezed. I waited until he ordered 2 men to check the medicine room. Then I slid out as slime, left a clone inside the crate, and phased through the floor. Under the warehouse, old drainage pipes connected every section. I moved through them like a blue rumor. I used frog jump to pop out of vents, flash burst to blind guards, trap pocket to drop goblin snares under their feet, and ghost phasing to vanish whenever they swung. But the flashy part came when they gathered in the loading area with hostages. The leader grabbed a man and shouted for the invisible attacker to show himself. So I did. Every light in the warehouse went out. Echo pulse mapped the room, smell tracking marked every enemy, trap sense drew danger lines, my body turned slime, my skin bent light, 10 clones formed around me, each holding a glowing flash can. Then the lights came back. 11 Olivers stood on the rafters. The gang looked up. I said, "You have 5 seconds to drop your weapons." The leader laughed and lifted his knife. That was the answer I wanted. I jumped. So did every clone. We fell like blue comets. The clones burst into slime nets midair, wrapping weapons, faces, ankles. I hit the floor in shell skin, rolled through 3 men, bounced off a forklift, and sprang back with spring legs. 1 man fired a crossbow. Ghost phasing let the bolt pass through my shoulder. I pulled it out of the wall behind me and threw it into a rope that dropped a stack of empty pallets. The pallets slammed down, trapping 4 attackers in a wooden cage. 2 rushed the hostages. I spat acid at the floor, not them. The concrete smoked, their shoes stuck, and they fell face first. I stretched both arms, grabbed their belts, and flung them into a pile of flour sacks. The leader ran. Of course he ran. I let him. He sprinted out the back door, down the alley, and straight into the path of the city guards I had summoned earlier by tying their alarm bell to a slime clone shaped like a rat. The clone had run across the street, screamed, and exploded in blue goo at their feet. Very professional. The guards caught the leader. The hostages were freed. The stolen medicine went back to the shelter. The woman found her brother alive. When the guards asked how I got inside, I pointed at the crate. The clone inside lifted its lid and waved before dissolving. For 2 days, people at the market called me the crate demon. I accepted it, but every win pulled bigger eyes toward me. Iris visited the station alone after the warehouse fight. She did not bring officers. She did not bring threats. She brought a Stormhawk core in a velvet pouch and placed it on the vending machine tray. A gift, he said. I smelled rain and burnt sugar. A lie, but a complicated one. Gifts usually don't smell like hooks, I said. Iris's eyes sharpened. You can smell lies now. Only the sweaty ones. He looked around the station. Clean platforms, reinforced doors, training marks on concrete, empty cans stacked by monster type, a weak kid's hiding place slowly becoming the strangest fortress in the city. You could do more with support, he said. I am doing more. You could light under my guilds. There it is. Iris did not get angry. That was her gift. Parker burned hot. Iris froze. The city is not kind to independent power. People will test you. Monsters will hunt noise. Thieves will come for your machine. Then I'll make the tests educational. He studied me for a long time. Then he smiled for real. Be careful, Oliver. Clever people often forget that power creates shadows. After he left, I fed the Stormhawk core into the machine anyway. Selene would have called that reckless. Dylan called it dinner entertainment. The can dropped with a crackle of static. Temporary thunderstep, 10 seconds. 10 seconds of lightning movement. I drank it and vanished. I did not teleport. My body became speed wrapped in sparks. The platform stretched. Air shattered around me. I crossed from one end of the station to the other before my thoughts caught up. Then I hit a vending cart, exploded through a stack of empty cans, and left a human-shaped dent in a wall. Dylan sipped coffee. Need steering. Thunderstep was insane. With spring legs I could launch. With Thunderstep I could appear. With slime body I could survive the landing. With trap sense I could avoid turning myself into paste, sort of. For a week the station sounded like lightning, crashing metal, and Dylan saying, again. Compatibility was slow because Stormhawk cores were rare, but even temporary, Thunderstep became my emergency blade. And I needed it when the bone train woke up. The old tracks below the station had always smelled wrong. Sweet rot, cold iron, old blood. I thought it was just leftover monster nests. Then one night the rails started humming. Every empty can on my shelves rattled. The vending machine screen flickered with static, not words. Dylan went pale. Tracks are singing, he said. I did not like his voice. What does that mean? It means something down there remembers being a train. The first tremor split the platform. From the tunnel mouth came a whistle so deep it shook dust from the ceiling. Blue flames appeared in the dark. Rails twisted upward like ribs. Then the bone train rolled into view. It was not a machine anymore. It was a monster made from train cars, skeletons, broken seats, and iron hunger. Its front was a skull-shaped engine with headlight eyes. Its wheels were spinning bones. Hands reached from its windows. Every car dragged chains full of trapped spirits. The station had not been abandoned. It had been waiting. Bone train screamed and vomited skeleton passengers onto the platform. Dylan grabbed a wrench. I pushed him behind a pillar. No heroic old man moments, I said. He scowled, then do something stupid and effective. That was my specialty. Skeletons flooded the platform. I drank slime body, shell skin, flash burst, and echo pulse in rapid sequence. My stomach fizzed like a fireworks accident. I stretched across the platform, became a blue wall, and let the skeletons crash into me, bones stuck inside my slime. I hardened shell skin over them and rolled forward, collecting more skeletons until I was a giant rattling snowball of undead regret. Then I bounced. The skeleton ball ricocheted off pillars, smashed into benches, and exploded against the side of the train. Bones flew everywhere. The train laughed. Actual laugh. The sound scraped my skull. Its front car opened like a mouth and fired a beam of ghost flame. I used wall phasing and dropped through the platform. The beam carved a line through the station roof. I fell into the maintenance level, reformed, and ran along the pipes while Echo Pulse mapped the train above. Its core was not in the engine. It was moving through the cars, hidden inside one of the chain spirits. Of course it was. A normal fighter would attack the engine. I needed to rob the train while it was trying to kill me. I phased up through the floor into the second car. Inside was a nightmare hallway of dangling handles, broken seats, and skeletal hands reaching from the walls. The train's interior stretched longer than its exterior. Ghost passengers turned toward me with empty eyes. I drank ghost phasing again. Cold swallowed my arms. I ran through the car half physical, half spirit, using trap sense to avoid hands that could freeze my heart. When they blocked the aisle, I turned slime and flowed under the seats. When the walls tried to bite, I hardened shell skin and bounced off them. When ghost chains whipped at me, I used Thunderstep for 1 second and left them striking empty air. The core scent moved ahead. Sweet rot, cold iron, old grief. I chased it car by car. Bone train kept changing. One car became a dining hall where skeletal waiters threw knives. I ate the knives with slime body and spat them back into the ceiling. Another became a luggage car full of suitcases that screamed when opened. I opened all of them because I am curious and stupid, releasing a storm of ghost moths that attacked everything, including the train walls. Thank you, screaming suitcases. The fifth car had no floor. Just rails over darkness. The core scent waited on the other side. I could not jump it normally. The gap bent space. Spring legs would throw me into the void. Wall phasing had nothing to grip. Thunder step might work if I could aim. So I used spider core. I had been saving it. Selene sold it to me with a warning that the skill felt like walking on secrets. The vending machine had produced a black can labeled temporary thread step, 1 minute. I drank it as the train screamed around me. A thread appeared under my foot. Not a web, not rope. A thin glowing line stretched through the air wherever I intended to step. My foot touched it and held. Another thread appeared, then another. I ran across empty space. Every step formed a shining strand. The void snapped below me, but I was already above it, sprinting on lines of silver, twisting sideways, upside down, forward, laughing because the world had forgot to tell me no. A ghost chain whipped toward my face. I ducked under it, stepped onto the chain itself, then onto a thread, then onto the wall, then behind the spirit holding the moving core. It looked like a conductor made of bones and smoke. The core pulsed inside its chest lantern. The conductor raised one hand. The entire car folded inward. I used slime body to flatten, ghost phase to pass through the folding wall, thread step to run along a crease in space, and thunder step to appear above the conductor. Then I activated trap pocket. Not a goblin snare this time. A hole-stored spring platform from the station. The slime bubble popped under the conductor's feet. The spring launched it into the ceiling so hard its lantern cracked. I stretched my arm, grabbed the core, and pulled. The conductor shrieked. The bone train slammed its brakes. Every car bucked. The interior collapsed back into normal space. I flew through 3 doors, bounced off a skeleton, and landed on the engine roof as the train burst out of the tunnel and onto the dead elevated tracks outside the station. The city spread below me, dark and burning in little patches. The bone train roared, trying to throw me off. I held the core in both hands. It was a boss core. Huge, black, ringed with blue fire. The vending machine had said boss core could produce forbidden skill capsule. But I was currently on top of a screaming undead train, so patience seemed overrated. I bit the core. Iron bite cracked its. Power blasted through my mouth and down my throat. Do not bite boss cores. That is not advice. That is a prayer. My vision turned blue. Ghost flame wrapped my body. Slime compatibility surged. Trap sense screamed. Every temporary skill inside me fizzed at once. For 10 seconds, I was not one monster. I was a vending machine disaster menu with legs. I spread slime wings from my back, hardened them with shell skin, threaded them with spider lines, bent light around them, and lit the edges with ghost flame. Then I drove both hands into the engine's skull. Stop, I said. The train did not stop. So I made it derail upward. I used thread step to stitch the rails to the sky. Silver strands shot from my feet, hands, and slime wings, weaving across the elevated track. The bone train charged into them. The threads tightened, lifted, twisted, and pulled the engine off the rails like a hooked fish. It screamed as I swung it in a giant arc over the city. People below looked up and saw a weak kid dragging an undead train through the air with glowing spider threads. I wish I could say I looked graceful. I was yelling the entire time. The train slammed into an abandoned parking structure outside the wall. The explosion of bone and iron lit the night. I crashed after it, rolled through 3 floors, and landed in a pile of dusty shopping carts. The boss core shard pulsed in my hand. The bone train was dead. Mostly. The engine skull cracked open, releasing dozens of trapped spirits. They rose like blue sparks, silent and weightless. One drifted past me and smelled like coffee, wire, and old grief. Dylan stood at the edge of the crater, face pale. A small spirit touched his shoulder. He closed his eyes. I looked away. Everyone deserved one unlocked door too. The next day, the city treated me differently. Not kindly. Carefully. There is a difference. People can mock a lucky slime kid. They can doubt a market trickster. But when someone throws a bone train out of the sky, even the loudest idiots start whispering. Iris came to the station alone. She was the leader of the largest local guild and also its strongest duelist, fast enough to cut rain, calm enough to make silence nervous. She wore a long dark coat, carried a thin storm blade, and never wasted movement. I had seen her kill a thunder lizard with 3 steps and look bored by the 4th. She was not there to threaten me. That would have been easier. She bowed slightly. "I want to test you," she said. Her face revealed nothing. I knew the play, not politics, not contracts, just pressure. If Iris beat me in front of witnesses, my legend would shrink. If I refused, it would shrink anyway. If I won, Iris would learn more about my limits. So I smiled. "Station rules," I said. Iris tilted her head, "Which are? Try not to break the vending machine." We fought on the platform at noon. No crowd, just Dylan, Selene eating noodles on a bench, and the vending machine flickering like it wanted popcorn. Iris moved first. I did not see her draw. Trap Sense screamed. I turned slime. Her blade passed through my shoulder, but the edge carried lightning and pain flashed across my nerves. She adjusted instantly, slicing twice more, each cut aimed at where my core of mass shifted inside the slime. She was reading me. That was bad. I drank thread step and launched upward. Silver lines formed under my feet. I ran over her head, dropping clones. She cut 3 before they finished forming. I used flash burst. She closed her eyes before it popped. I used smell tracking to flank. She pivoted without looking. Iris was not strong because of one big power. She was strong because she wasted nothing. I respected that. Then I became extremely annoying. I split into slime clones, but instead of making them look like me, I made them into objects. A bouncing ball, a dropped can, a fake core, a wet floor sign. Iris ignored the obvious clones and tracked my real scent, so I used wolf musk again, coating every clone in my smell. Her blade hesitated. I used that moment to ghost phase through the platform and come up behind her. She still blocked. Barely. Her sword met my shell-skinned fist with a crack. She pushed me back, stepped in, and placed the blade against my neck. For half a second, I had lost. Then the wet floor sign behind her exploded. It was a slime clone carrying a trap pocket. Goblin spring snare snapped around her ankles and launched her straight upward. She cut the snare midair, flipped, and landed perfectly on a thread line I had left above the platform. My thread line. I grinned. Thread step responded to intention. And I had intended that line to be slippery. Iris slid sideways, expression finally changing as she dropped into a giant slime cushion shaped like a smiling face. The cushion swallowed her up to the shoulders. I landed beside her and tapped 2 fingers on her blade, now stuck in blue goo. "Draw?" I asked. For the first time, Iris smiled. "Draw." Iris's face revealed nothing, but his scent sharpened. Not fear. Interest. That was worse than fear. The forbidden capsule from the boss core dropped that night. I had fed the remaining bone train core shard into the vending machine, and the whole station went quiet. The cracked screen showed no words for a long time, then the tray opened. A can rolled out. It was black with blue flames, heavier than metal, cold enough to frost my fingers. Temporary spirit conductor, 1 minute. Dylan went still. Selene leaned away from it. Even I knew not to joke. Spirit conductor sounded like the bone train's command skill. Control chains, move trapped spirits, maybe command undead machines, dangerous, maybe evil. I left the can unopened for 3 days. That may be my personal record for self-control. During those 3 days, trouble gathered. Harker vanished from the city holding cells after someone broke the lock. Several core shipments disappeared. Monsters near the outer tunnels started moving in organized patterns. Then Selene arrived at the station with blood on her sleeve and a warning. "Harker is selling your location to every hungry crew and monster baiter outside the wall," she said. "He says the machine can make anyone strong." I looked at the vending machine. The screen flickered innocently. Dylan grunted, "Can it?" I thought about compatibility, about repeated use, about how the machine gave power but not control, about how many times I had smashed into walls before learning steering. About how a greedy idiot might drink 5 unknown cans and turn himself into a screaming cloud of frog legs and beetle shell. "Yes," I said, for about 3 seconds, then it gets funny. I did not hide the station. I prepared a show. If evil people wanted to attack me for the machine, I would make the lesson public enough to save time. Dylan rigged the platform lights. Selene spread a rumor that I had left the station to hunt. I moved the vending machine behind a false wall and replaced it with a fake made from scrap metal, empty cans, and a glowing crystal rat core. Then I filled the station with traps, clones, scent bubbles, and enough slime pockets to make the floor technically alive. At midnight, Parker arrived with a stolen crew. Not friends, hired blades, greedy scavengers, people who thought a broken vending machine was an easier path to power than surviving fights. Parker led them through the main entrance, red jacket torn, eyes fever bright. He looked worse than before, thinner, angrier, less like a bully, more like a man being eaten by his own jealousy. I watched from inside the ceiling, with Ghost phasing ready. Parker saw the fake machine and smiled. "There," he whispered. One scavenger stepped forward with a core. The fake machine accepted it because Dylan was a genius and had installed a simple trigger. A can dropped. The scavenger grabbed it. Label said temporary Dragon Majesty. It was actually warm beetle juice with glitter. He drank. Nothing happened. Then every trap in the station woke up. Lights flashed, sirens wailed. Slime clones rose from the floor wearing fake mustaches because I had gotten bored during preparation. The scavengers panicked and attacked the clones. The clones exploded into sticky nets. Parker shouted for them to calm down. I dropped from the ceiling behind him. "Bad news," I said. "The machine does not like thieves." Parker spun and swung a hatchet. I ghost phased. The blade passed through me and hit a slime bubble behind my shoulder. The bubble contained flash burst. The station became daylight. I moved through the chaos with thunder step, 10 seconds at a time, sparks cracking around my feet. I appeared behind one attacker, tapped his knee with shell skin, and let his own charge flip him into a bench. Another threw a spear. I caught it in slime body, bent it into a circle, and dropped it over his head like a necklace. A third tried to grab Selene, who had appeared on the balcony to watch. She calmly threw hot noodles in his face. I respected her deeply. Parker ignored everyone else and came straight for me. His attacks were faster now, desperate. He had gained power somewhere, maybe from stolen cores, maybe from some dangerous brew. His hatchets left red trails in the air. Each swing cut through slime and burned the edges, forcing me to reform slower. He had prepared for me. Good. I had prepared for him, preparing for me. I let him push me back. Across the platform, down the stairs, past the fake machine, into the old control room. He thought he was cornering me. I let my breathing sound panicked. He smiled, and for a second, he looked like the old Parker again. "Out of tricks," he said. I backed against the control panel. "Almost." He lunged. I turned fully slime and spread across the control panel instead of dodging. His hatchet sank into the panel, cutting wires. Exactly the wires Dylan had left exposed. The old rail switches outside the station activated. Beneath us, the floor shuddered. Parker frowned. I reformed behind him and waved. The control room wall opened. Not a door. A maintenance lift. Platform shot upward, carrying Parker with it like a villain on a stage elevator. It launched him through the broken roof and into a giant slime net stretched between two signal towers. The net bounced him once, twice, then held him upside down above the street where the city guards, Iris's fighters, and about 50 witnesses were waiting because Selene had sold tickets without telling me. I stepped out onto the roof, lit by moonlight and station sparks. Parker dangled in front of everyone, red jacket flapping. I could have mocked him. I wanted to. But seeing him there, trapped by his own choice, did not feel as sweet as I expected. So I said, "You keep attacking weaker people because you think power means nobody can say no. I learned power means I can make sure they get the chance." The guards took him down. This time nobody needed my explanation. The stolen cores were on his crew. The witnesses had seen the attack. Parker did not shout as they dragged him away. He looked at me once, and the anger was still there, but buried under something heavier. Fear, maybe. Or the first tiny understanding that I was no longer beneath him. The station cheered. Then the real alarm bells rang from the city wall. Not one bell. All of them. Dylan looked east. Selene stopped counting cores. Iris's fighters drew weapons. A red beam rose beyond the wall, painting the clouds like blood. Monster surge. Not beetles, not goblins, not wolves. The big kind. By the time I reached the eastern wall, the city was already shaking. A crack had opened in the old highway outside the gate, and monsters poured from it in waves. Bone apes with 4 arms, fire lizards crawling over each other, flying leeches the size of umbrellas. And behind them, still half inside the crack, something enormous pushed its way into the world. A dragon. Not a full ancient dragon like the legends. Those were mountain-sized nightmares. This one was young, wounded, and missing one horn. It was still bigger than the guild hall. Its scales were dark red, its wings were torn, its breath turned asphalt into glass. The city's strongest fighters formed lines at the gate. Iris stood at the front, storm blade humming. I stood on top of the wall with a bag of cans, a pocket full of cores, and the deep awareness that my life had become impossible to explain. Iris glanced up at me. Any tricks for dragons? I pulled out a red can. Dragon Core Flame Breath Trial. Selene had sold it to me 2 weeks earlier at a price that made my soul limp. I had never tested it because the label said trial, and I had learned to respect labels that sounded disappointed in me. I shook the can. It growled. Probably a bad one, I said. The surge hit. Everything became motion. Iris's storm blade split fire lizards apart with arcs of lightning and cut flying leeches out of the sky in silver flashes. Guild fighters held the gate, but the wave was too wide. Monsters climbed walls, smashed barricades, spilled into side streets. I drank thread step and jumped off the wall. Silver lines caught my feet. I ran above the battlefield, dropping slime clones like bombs. Each clone burst into sticky nets, tangling wings and legs. I used flash burst to blind bone apes, trap sense to see where their jumps would land, and ghost phasing to slip through claws that could pulp stone. A fire lizard opened its mouth. I opened mine first. Acid spit hit its tongue. It gagged. I bounced off its head with shell skin, spring-kicked another lizard, and used thunder step to appear above a group of civilians trapped behind a cart. I spread slime body into a shield as flames washed over us. The heat hurt. Compatibility kept me together. The civilians ran. I split off 3 clones to guide them. One clone saluted and immediately ran into a wall because it had too much of my personality. No time to mourn him. The dragon pulled itself free from the crack. The entire battlefield stopped for half a second. Then it breathed. A river of fire rolled toward the gate. Iris raised her storm blade and split part of it, cutting through the edges. The guild shields held for 2 seconds, then started melting. I drank Flame Breath Trial. The can tasted like cinnamon, smoke, and immediate regret. My chest became a furnace. A small red timer appeared in my vision. 15 seconds. Trial meant prove you can survive your own breath. Great. I jumped from a thread line, landed in front of the gate, and inhaled. Fire poured into me. Not from my mouth. From the dragon. Slime body expanded, shell skin cracked, ghost flame from the bone train core flickered around my ribs. I used pocket stomach to swallow the edge of the dragon's breath, compressing it into a burning slime bubble inside me. My whole body glowed red. Dylan's voice echoed in my memory. Do something stupid and effective. I exhaled. The flame that came out was not dragon fire. It was vending machine fire. Blue red fizzy, spiraling with slime bubbles and spider threads. It blasted across the battlefield, not in a straight line, but in bouncing arcs that chased monsters like angry fireworks. Fire lizards exploded. Bone apes dove for cover. Flying leeches popped in the sky. The dragon blinked, clearly offended. Then it charged me. I ran. Not away. Up. Thread step lifted me into the air. Spring legs launched me from one silver line to another. Thunder step turned gaps into sparks. The dragon snapped at me, and I ghost phased through its teeth, which felt exactly as pleasant as it sounds. I landed on its snout, stuck there with wall cling, and slapped both hands over its eyes. Slime body spread. I became a blindfold. The dragon roared and thrashed. Iris saw the opening. Iris's lightning blade struck one wing joint, then cut the tendons on the other side. The dragon stumbled, smashing into the highway. But it was not done. Its chest expanded again. Another breath. Bigger. Hotter. Aimed at the city. I had no flame breath trial left. No Stormhawk core. No time. I reached into my coat and pulled out the black can. Temporary spirit conductor, 1 minute. Dylan had warned me with silence. Selene had warned me by refusing to look at it. My own instincts warned me with cold needles under my skin. I popped it open. I drank. For 1 second, I heard every dead thing nearby. Bone train spirits drifting above the station, the monsters killed at the gate, the old echoes under the highway, not voices exactly, more like pressure, weight, unfinished motion. The dragon breathed. I raised my hand. Chains of blue light erupted from the ground. They were not chains of control. I did not enslave anything. I pulled on movement, memory, the last direction of things that had already fallen. The broken cars on the highway lifted. The bones of dead monsters rose. The shattered rails beneath the street tore free. Everything dead and heavy surged upward into a wall. Dragon fire smashed into it. The wall melted, but held long enough for the city shields to reset. The spirit conductor timer burned down. 50 seconds. I understood the skill then. It did not command spirits like servants. It conducted them like music. Motion in exchange for release. I turned toward the dragon. The battlefield was full of dead monster bodies, broken weapons, shattered barricades, crushed cars and old rails, a whole orchestra of wreckage. I lifted both hands. The dead rose in pieces. Not as zombies. As tools. Bone ape arms became giant clubs, fire lizard scales became shields, flying leech wings became spinning blades, old highway signs became silver cards, train rails bent into spears. Every piece moved with a blue trail, spinning around me like a storm. The dragon took one step back. I laughed because fear had finally changed sides. Then I attacked. I ran on spider threads through my own storm of wreckage, directing everything with slime arms stretched in 20 directions. Rail spears pinned the dragon's feet. Bone clubs smashed its knees. Scale shields blocked its claws. I used thunderstep to appear under its jaw and hit it with shell skin so hard my arm went numb. It tried to fly. I stitched its shadow to the ground with thread step. That should not have worked. It worked because Spirit Conductor made the shadow heavy with the memory of falling. Iris stared at me like she wanted to ask 10 questions and cut 5 of them in half. Iris used the opening. She leapt onto a rail spear, ran up it, and drove lightning into the dragon's broken horn. The dragon roared, flame leaking from its mouth. Its core glowed in its chest. Huge, red, furious. I had 20 seconds left. I formed 2 massive slime wings and launched myself toward the core. The dragon saw me and snapped. I ghost phased through one tooth, lost feeling in my left leg, reformed with slime body, and kept going. Its chest scales were too hard. Iron bite could not crack them. Acid spit barely smoked. So I did not break the scales. I opened the vending machine method in my head. Insert monster core. Everything had a slot if you were rude enough. I used trap sense to find the tiny gap between 2 chest scales. I stretched slime fingers into it, wall clung to the inside edge, and inserted a slime clone carrying a flash burst, a trap pocket, and the last bit of flame breath trial still burning in my stomach. The clone waved from inside the dragon's chest gap. Then it popped the can. The dragon lit up from within. Not dead. Stunned. Its chest scales opened for half a second. Iris shouted something. I did not hear it. I dove in, wrapped both arms around the dragon core, and pulled. The dragon's heartbeat hit me like a hammer. My body tried to tear apart. Slime compatibility surged to 90%. Thread step wrapped my legs in silver lines. Spirit Conductor pulled every broken rail behind me. I pulled harder. The core came loose. The dragon screamed. I fell backward with the core against my chest, tumbling through fire and smoke. The timer hit 0. Spirit Conductor vanished. Every piece of wreckage dropped. So did I. I would have hit the ground hard enough to become a cautionary stain. But Iris caught my sleeve with a thrown blade chain. Her lightning slowed the fall, and my own slime body finally stopped asking permission. It activated by itself. Permanently. I hit the ground as blue slime, bounced twice, reformed as human, and vomited smoke. The dragon collapsed behind me. The monster surge broke. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then the city erupted. People screamed my name, hunters raised weapons, children jumped on broken carts, even Iris smiled, though it looked painful for her. She walked over, pulled her blade from the ground, and looked at me. You are absurd, she said. I wiped ash from my face. I train hard. She glanced at the dragon core in my arms. That is not training. No, I said, this is lunch money. Dylan arrived late in a rattling cart pulled by 2 crystal rats he had somehow convinced to work for him. Selene stood beside him, counting the value of every scale on the dragon before it finished cooling. Dylan looked at the dead dragon, then at me. You drank the black can. I used it responsibly. A chunk of highway fell over behind me. Dylan stared. I added for meat. The city changed after the dragon. Not into paradise. The apocalypse did not end because I had one dramatic afternoon, monsters still crawled out of cracks, food still mattered, walls still needed guards, but something shifted. The guild no longer owned hope by default. People came to the station not just with fear, but with plans. They brought cores nobody valued. Mosquito cores, mushroom cores, pebble crab cores, smoke eel cores, moth cores, screaming turnip cores, which I still refuse to discuss. The vending machine turned them all into possibilities. I did not hand out drinks freely. Not because I wanted control. Because I knew what happened when power hit an untrained body, so I tested people with harmless cans first, bounce bones in a padded room, smell tracking with strong soap nearby, slime finger over a bucket. Anyone greedy enough to chug 3 unknown cans without listening got banned by Dylan, who had built a lever that dropped them into a laundry cart and rolled them outside. The station became a training ground for weird fighters. Not a guild. A place for people who had been told their cores were trash. A woman with moth dust learned to blind monsters without killing them. A cook used heat beetle breath to keep shelter kitchens running. A quiet kid with pebble crab grip could climb walls and repair roof cracks. None of them became legends overnight, but they became harder to break. Iris did not try to take the station after that. Maybe because he respected me. Maybe because Iris kept visiting to challenge me and always left with her coat covered in slime. Maybe because he knew the city needed more than one kind of strength. Parker stayed locked away for a while. I did not visit him. Revenge had already paid out and left no interest, but I heard he stopped smiling at weaker people. That was enough. My permanent skills kept growing. Slime body became part of me. I could stretch, flatten, split small clones, absorb impacts, and reshape wounds before they became serious. Trap sense became a constant whisper. Smell tracking let me read battlefields before entering them. Thread step still needed a can for full air-running madness, but sometimes, when I jumped, a single silver line appeared under my foot without being asked. Ghost phasing remained dangerous. Thunder step remained expensive. Flame breath trial remained banned indoors after the noodle incident. Vending machine screen showed compatibility records if I pressed my palm against it. Slime body permanent foundation. Trap sense advanced compatibility. Smell tracking advanced compatibility. Thread step awakening response. Spirit conductor dormant echo. Dragon flame unstable seed. I did not know what half of that meant. I knew it sounded expensive. Then 3 weeks after the dragon surge, the vending machine did something new. It opened without a core. I was alone in the station at dawn. Dylan was asleep in the control room. Selene had left to chase a rumor about a singing cactus monster. Iris was outside the wall handling a nest of glass ants. The platform lights flickered softly. Empty cans lined my shelves like trophies of bad judgment. The vending machine hummed. I turned. The cracked screen flickered green. No insert monster core. No compatibility record. Just one line. Destination drink available. The tray opened. A can rolled out. It was not black like the boss skill, not red like dragon flame, not silver like wolf tracking. It was deep violet, with a tiny picture of a train door opening into a starless tunnel. Temporary station key, 1 ride. I picked it up. The can was warm. Somewhere below the platform, rails that had been dead for years began to hum again, not the bone train's hungry song, a cleaner sound, a path waking up. I walked to the edge of the platform. Far down the dark tunnel, a light appeared. Small at first, then closer. Train whistle echoed through the station, clear and bright, as if the world had hidden a road under all the ruins, and finally decided I was annoying enough to find it. Dylan stumbled out of the control room, holding a wrench and half a sandwich. He looked at the tunnel, then at the can in my hand. No, he said. I smiled. Selene's voice echoed from the stairs behind me. Somehow she had returned at the exact moment profit became possible. Is that a new flavor? Iris arrived minutes later, drawn by the humming rails. She stared into the tunnel with the face of someone seeing a map rewrite itself, one hand resting on her blade as she smiled slightly. The train light grew brighter. The vending machine screen flickered once more. Insert courage. I laughed, because that was not a core. That was not a recipe. That was not something anyone could sell me. I looked at the people on my platform, the old repairman who had taught me where the station hid its bones, the merchant who could smell profit through concrete. The storm-eyed guild leader who finally understood that strange power was still power, the duelist who had turned testing me into a hobby, the city above us, still broken, still breathing. Then I looked at the violet can. A few months ago, I had been hiding behind a ticket kiosk, shaking so hard I could barely hold a slime core. Now the monsters outside the wall checked the shadows before stepping forward. Now greedy men thought twice before reaching for what was not theirs. Now every worthless core in the city had become a maybe. And me. I popped the tab. The station filled with violet steam. The train doors opened in the dark. I raised the can like a toast to every person who had ever laughed at me. Then I drank the impossible flavor and stepped toward the ride. The train did not wait for courage to become comfortable. The moment my shoe touched the glowing step, the platform tilted sideways like reality had been grabbed by the collar. Dylan shouted something behind me. Selene laughed like she had just discovered a treasure chest with wheels. Iris moved first, fast as a blade, and grabbed my sleeve before the doors could close. Then all 5 of us were pulled inside. The doors slammed shut, and the abandoned train station vanished behind violet glass. For one breath, I thought we were moving through a tunnel. Then I saw the tunnel looking back at me. Walls outside the train were not made of brick or stone. They were made of old scenes, stacked on top of each other like torn posters. I saw the convenience store where I used to work, half covered in vines. I saw the testing crystal at the city gate blinking unstable. I saw Parker laughing with his mouth wide open, except the image froze right before the sound came out, which was honestly the best version of Parker I had ever experienced. Dylan pressed both hands against the window. That is not a railway. No kidding, Selene said. Railways usually have less emotional damage. I still had violet foam on my lips from the station key soda. My whole body buzzed like I had swallowed a lightning bug. The can in my hand collapsed into a tiny metal ticket. A line appeared on it in pale letters. One ride to the next unopened platform. I turned the ticket over, but the back was blank. Of course it was blank. Normal magical train would give you a destination. My train apparently believed suspense was a flavor. The car itself looked ancient but clean. Velvet seats, brass handrails, cracked lamps. At the far end stood a snack cart bolted to the floor. My eyes locked on it instantly, because after months of surviving on Monster soda, I had developed a sixth sense for suspicious beverage containers. The cart held one tiny bottle. It was clear glass with a cork stopper, and inside floated a golden bubble that kept trying to escape the liquid. The label read Temporary Conductor Blink, 30 seconds. Iris leaned over my shoulder. Please tell me you are not drinking train juice from a stranger cart. I popped the cork. Iris sighed. He is absolutely drinking train juice from a stranger cart. Liquid tasted like toasted sugar and bad decisions. My eyes flashed gold. Suddenly, every door in the train glowed with thin lines only I could see, and each line led to a different moving shadow outside. A second door led to the old market tunnel. A third led to a collapsed hospital roof. A fourth led into pure darkness, where something enormous dragged claws along stone. But the front door, the one beside the driver's cabin, opened onto a place full of blue light and broken escalators. Then the skill ended, and my vision snapped back. 30 seconds. Just enough time to know the train was not just moving forward. It was offering exits. The question was which exit wanted to eat us least. Before I could choose, the lamps in the ceiling flickered red. Not bright red, not warning red, more like a monster smiling with its mouth closed. Something landed on the roof. The whole car buckled. Dylan grabbed a rail. Selene fell into a seat and immediately checked under the cushion for valuables. Iris drew her weapon and stepped into the aisle, calm enough to be insulting. A long needle pierced through the ceiling. Then another. Then 10 more. A swarm of pale tunnel moths punched their feeding tubes through the metal roof and started drinking the light from the lamps. The car dimmed with every gulp. Their wings beat above us like wet paper fans. The old me would have hidden under a seat and apologized for taking up space. The current me had a pocket full of Monster soda cans and no emotional maturity left. I crushed a spider core can between my teeth. Temporary thread step flooded my legs. The aisle stretched in my vision, and every hanging strap became a possible foothold. I kicked off the seat, bounced off a window, landed sideways on the ceiling between the stabbing needles, and ran upside down while the others stared. The moths kept stabbing. I opened a goblin trap sense can mid-run and chugged it without using my hands, because apparently I had become the kind of person who could drink while sprinting on a ceiling. The world filled with little red warning lines. Each needle showed me where it would stab next. Too slow. Too greedy. Too predictable. I slid between them, slapped slime soda on my arms, and let my elbows melt into stretchy blue clubs. Then I grabbed 5 needles at once and yanked. The moths shrieked above the roof. "Oliver," Dylan shouted, "the roof cannot take that." "Then the moths should have thought about property damage before biting my train," I shouted back. I drank a wolf tracking can, caught the sour smell of their bodies through the metal, and used it like a map. One moth moved left, another clustered near the front. A fat one pulsed above the snack cart, drinking harder than the rest. There was always a greedy one. Greedy ones made excellent handles. I phased one hand through the ceiling with ghost soda, grabbed the fat moth by the throat, and pulled myself upward through solid metal. For a second, my body turned transparent from the ribs down. The ceiling passed through me like cold water. Then I erupted onto the roof of the train, violet tunnel wind tearing at my hair. The sight above nearly made me laugh. Hundreds of moths crawled over the train like starving blankets. Their bodies glowed with stolen lamp fire. Their wings were painted with fake eye patterns that shimmered in the darkness, trying to scare anything that looked at them. It would have worked on somebody sensible. I was not sensible. I had a dragon flame trial soda, saved for emergencies and dramatic entrances. This felt like both. I popped the tab. Heat rolled down my throat, through my chest, and into my lungs. My compatibility had climbed high enough that the pain no longer made me cry. It made me grin. The moths turned toward me. I spread my slime arms wide, caught 2 handrails through the roof with ghost fingers, anchored myself, and breathed fire in a spinning circle. The roof became sunrise. Moths scattered in every direction, wings igniting in bright blue bursts. I twisted my body like a human sprinkler of violence, combining thread step with slime flexibility until my spine had definitely forgotten what bones were supposed to do. Flame carved a glowing ring across the top of the train. The swarm lifted away, screeching, and the tunnel wind carried them into the scenes flashing outside. One moth survived by clinging to the front lamp. I sensed it before I saw it. Goblin trap sense painted its next lunge as a red streak aimed at my face. I let it come. At the last second, I activated temporary slime body and turned my head into a wobbling blob. The needle punched straight through me and came out the other side without hitting anything important. The moth froze. I smiled around the needle in my face. That was rude. Then I inflated my slime head like a balloon, trapping the needle, and used wolf strength from a mixed can to swing the entire moth off the train roof. It hit the tunnel wall, bounced through a frozen memory of Parker laughing, and vanished with a tiny pathetic sparkle. By the time I dropped back through the ceiling, the others were staring at me, with expressions ranging from concern to profit calculation. Selene slowly raised one hand. "I would like to buy whatever lets you become a flaming ceiling goblin." "It is not for sale." "Everything is for sale if the buyer survives negotiation." Iris looked at the holes in the roof. "We are on a magical train with a roof full of punctures." Dylan already had tools out. Good news, the metal is healing. He was right. Violet sparks crawled over the ceiling holes, stitching them shut like the train had decided my vandalism was entertaining enough to forgive. The lamps returned one by one. The ticket in my palm warmed. The front door glowed blue. I walked toward it. Iris followed without asking. That was her style. She did not waste breath questioning a bad idea if she planned to stab whatever came after it. Dylan brought his wrench. Selene brought 3 stolen moth scales she somehow collected during the chaos. Iris brought the expression of a woman regretting every choice that had led her near me. The train slowed. Outside the door, blue light widened into a platform that should not have existed. The doors opened. A voice from nowhere, soft as soda fizz, whispered the name of the stop. Sunken Interchange. We stepped out into a station, beneath a city that had drowned without water. Everything was dry, but fish skeletons hung in the air like decorations. Ticket machines floated 6 inches above the floor. Escalators moved in both directions at once. The ceiling was glass, and beyond it I could see the underside of an ocean made of stars. At the center of the platform stood another vending machine. Not old like mine. Not cracked. This one was tall, sleek, and painted midnight blue. Its screen flickered with a sleeping fish icon. I walked closer. The screen lit up. Insert monster core. I laughed so hard the echo came back nervous. Selene leaned beside me. "Please tell me you understand what this means." "It means the station had cousins. It means a supply chain." "Selene, it means destiny has inventory." Machine's tray clicked open even, though I had not inserted anything. Inside waited a can the color of deep ocean glass. Temporary pressure step, 5 minutes. I picked it up. The moment my fingers touched the can, the sunken station trembled. From the far tunnel came a dragging sound. Not claws, not wheels, chains. Heavy chains scraped the rails, and a shape moved in the blue darkness. A monster pulled itself out of the tunnel, link by link, its body made from rusted anchors, cracked helmets, and the rib bones of things that had never learned to walk on land. A skull shaped like a diving bell swung at its center, glowing from inside. Behind it came people. Not hunters from our city, not guards, core thieves. They wore patched coats, carried hook blades, and dragged cages on wheels. Their faces were hidden by cloth masks painted with smiling teeth. They had clearly found this place before us, and judging from the cages filled with shivering captives, they had not been using it for tourism. One of the masked people pointed at us. "Fresh cores," he said. I looked at Dylan. "Do I look like a fresh core?" "You look like trouble wearing shoes," he said. I turned back to the masked people, close enough. Iris stepped forward, but I put one hand out. There were around 30 of them, maybe more in the tunnel. They had cages, chains, and the kind of confidence only stupid cruelty can create. If Iris fought them straight, we would win, but the captives could get hurt. The chained anchor monster might smash the platform, the thieves might scatter. I did not want scattered. I wanted bundled, preferably embarrassed. I raised both hands. "Please do not attack me. I am extremely weak and carrying many valuable cores." Selene turned her head slowly. That sentence was bait with pants on. The masked people heard valuable and ignored every other word. They rushed. The anchor monster surged behind them, chains whipping across the tiles. I drank pressure step. The world became heavy and light at the same time. Every surface gained a second layer beneath it, like invisible water pressing upward. I stepped forward, and instead of running on the floor, I sank through the air, then bounced off pressure itself. My body shot upward. A hook blade passed under my foot. I landed on the side of a floating ticket machine, pushed off, drank spider thread step, and began skipping across nothing. Each footfall created a blue ripple in the air. To the thieves, it looked like I was dancing on invisible stairs. To me, it felt like the universe had become a trampoline. I threw slime from both hands. Not blobs. Nets. Slime body had become permanent enough that I could shape it without a full can now. I flicked my wrists, and translucent ropes splattered across the platform, sticking to boots, masks, hook blades, and cage wheels. The thieves swung at the slime, which was adorable because cutting slime only made more slime. I bounced above them, laughing like an idiot with a strategy. "Everyone who came here to kidnap people," I called, "please gather in the center for your free demonstration." They gathered because they were trying to kill me. That counted. Goblin trap sense painted the anchor monster's chain swing across the platform. I dropped low, let it pass over me, then ghost phased through the monster's diving bell skull and planted a spider thread inside the glowing core at its center. The monster froze. I landed behind it and pulled. The thread tightened. The anchor monster swung its own chain backward by accident and knocked 8 thieves into my slime net. Iris stared. "Did you just puppet an anchor skeleton?" "Temporarily," I said. "I do not want responsibility for its personality." The monster roared and tried to crush me with both arms. I drank another pressure step can, slid under the blow on a ripple of air, and slapped a goblin core soda against its skull. The machine had taught me something after enough experiments. Cans were made for drinking, but monster bodies could absorb them too if I crushed the liquid into exposed core matter. Most of the time, this was useless. This time, the anchor monster suddenly gained trap sense. Its glowing eyes widened. For the first time, the monster understood every danger around it, including me. It tried to retreat. Too late. I held up a dragon flame can and smiled. The anchor monster panicked so hard it tripped over its own chains, rolled across the platform, and flattened the rest of the thieves into a sticky pile. I did not even open the dragon can. Sometimes the threat of nonsense was cheaper than the nonsense. Iris moved through the aftermath like silver rain, cutting cage locks without touching the captives, then guarded the tunnel. Dylan disabled a chain trap hidden under the rails. Selene collected every hook blade, counted them, and announced that evil people had terrible taste but excellent resale weight. The thieves groaned inside the slime net. One tried to crawl away. I stepped on his coat and leaned down. "Where is your exit?" He refused to answer. So I opened a wolf tracking can and sniffed the air. Fear, rust, old oil, stale bread, tunnel mold, and behind all that, the sharp mineral smell of a core stash. I followed it to a maintenance room under the platform. The door was locked with 3 chains and a monster tooth charm. I phased through the wall. Inside, I found crates. So many crates. Slime cores, wolf cores, spider cores, ghost cores, strange blue fish cores, and a black anchor core the size of my head. The thieves had been storing monster cores instead of using them, probably waiting to sell them to desperate people back on the surface. Everyone else saw money. I saw flavors. My hands trembled. Selene appeared behind me after picking the lock from the outside. She stared at the crates like someone seeing the face of love. "Oliver," she whispered, "we are rich." "No," I said. She blinked, "Excuse me." I lifted a blue fish core. "We are stocked." That was when the midnight vending machine behind us hummed through the wall. The crates began to rattle. Every blue fish core floated into the air and drifted toward the platform. I ran after them. The machine's screen flashed. Bulk input accepted. A panel opened in its side, and the fish cores poured in like candy. The machine shook. Then cans began dropping. Pressure step. Gill lungs. Current dash. Bubble armors. Heavy tide punch. And one tiny can with a warning label that simply said, "Do not open indoors." Obviously, I wanted it immediately. Dylan took it from my hand before I could pop the tab. "No." I did not say anything. "Your face said indoors is a suggestion." He tucked the can into his tool bag, which was unfair because his tool bag had somehow become the only prison I respected. He freed the captives, tied the thieves in slime, and loaded them into their own rolling cages. The violet train returned when I raised the metal ticket. It pulled in silently, doors opening like it had been waiting for the joke to finish. The captives boarded first. The thieves complained. I gave the anchor monster a crushed gill lungs can to calm it down, which made no sense because it had no lungs, but it stopped roaring and started blowing bubbles from its skull. That seemed healthier. When we returned to our city, the guards at the gate nearly dropped their spears as 5 of us stepped off a train that had not existed yesterday, followed by 20 rescued people, a caged gang of masked core thieves. An anchor skeleton blowing bubbles, and Selene dragging 3 sacks of hook blades while claiming they were emotionally hers. Parker was there. Of course Parker was there. He had been released from the holding cells after claiming he had been under monster influence during his last attempt to rob me, which was impressive because the only monster influencing Parker was Parker. He stood near the gate with a bruised face, a patched jacket, and the kind of glare that made me think his brain had only 2 settings, envy and bad plan. The city guards stared at the caged thieves. One guard looked at me. "You captured all of them." I pointed at the anchor monster. Technically, he helped. The anchor monster blew a bubble the size of a helmet. The guard decided not to ask follow-up questions. Parker stepped forward. "This is fake." I looked at the cages, then at the monster, then at the train, then back at him. "Which part?" "All of it," he snapped. "You found some weird trick, and now everybody acts like you're special." I almost laughed. A few months ago, his words would have pierced me. Now they bounced off a slime layer of permanent emotional disrespect. "You are right," I said. "I found a weird trick." Parker sneered. And I raised one finger, and a thread shot from it to the top of the gate tower. I pulled myself upward, flipped over the battlements, landed upside down on the stone wall with spider step, and looked down at him. The difference is I practiced. People in the street started cheering. Parker's face twisted. I did not give him another second. I had learned something about men like him. If you argued, they fed on it. If you ignored them while doing something impossible, they had to digest themselves. I jumped down, bounced off a bubble armor can I had thrown midair, landed in front of the guards, and handed over the thieves. No speech. No bragging. Just results. That bothered Parker more than any insult could. That night, the station became crowded. Not with enemies. With people bringing cores. They lined up on the stairs holding bags, boxes, cracked jars, and shirt bundles. Weak people, injured people, kids who had lost parents, old shopkeepers, failed hunters. Anyone who had ever been told they were useless because they did not fit inside the old idea of strength. They had seen me step off a violet train with cages full of monsters and criminals. Now they wanted to know if useless cores could become impossible flavors for them too. The vending machine did not let them use it. I really did. Dylan checked the wiring. Selene tried bribing it with polished cores. Iris threatened it, then simply stared at it until a normal appliance would have apologized. The cracked screen only showed one line. Single customer calibration. Selene groaned, selfish machine. I stared at the line for a long time. The crowd waited quietly. I could have shrugged, I could have said sorry, I could have stayed special and let everyone else remain weak. Instead, I looked at the empty cans lining my shelves. Every time I drank a skill, the can stayed behind. Every empty can still carried a tiny fizz of power. Dylan had used them to patch lights. Selene had used one as a bargaining chip. I had once thrown an empty ghost can at a monster and watched it pass through a wall out of pure confusion. I picked up an empty slime can. What if the machine will not sell to them, I said, but I can share the leftovers. Dylan's eyes sharpened. You mean diluted skills? Training wheels could explode. Most wheels can if you are creative. He hated that answer, but he helped anyway. By dawn, we had built the stupidest training device in human history. Dylan connected empty cans to old soda tubes from the station snack stand. Selene found clean bottles. Iris carried water tanks and tested the first batch by dipping one finger into diluted slime fizz, then calmly bending that finger backward until Selene screamed. The effect lasted 10 seconds. No pain. No mutation. Just a tiny taste of slime flexibility. I called them fizz shots. Dylan called them a medical nightmare. Selene called them a future fortune. Iris called them better than letting people die. Iris asked for another one. The first public training session happened on Platform 2. A little boy with shaking hands drank diluted goblin trap scents and dodged 3 swinging sandbags in a row. An old woman drank diluted wolf smell tracking and found a lost medicine pouch under a bench. A miner with one bad leg drank diluted spider step and climbed the station wall while crying so hard he almost slipped. Nobody became a hero in one sip, but they became a little harder to crush. That was enough to change the city's breathing. Of course, the stronger guilds hated it. They had built their influence on fear. If weak people needed protection, the guilds controlled them. If weak people could dodge traps, track monsters, climb walls, and escape ambushes, they became annoying customers instead of obedient victims. Annoying customers ask questions. Questions are terrible for bullies. 3 nights later, a group of masked men broke into the station. They thought I was asleep. I was asleep. But I had permanent wolf tracking now, and my nose woke up before my brain did. Oil on leather. Metal dust. Jeep smoke. Bad intentions. I opened one eye in the control room and saw Dylan sleeping in a chair across from me with a wrench on his chest. I did not wake him. He needed rest, and I needed entertainment. The intruders crept down the stairs with padded boots, carrying sacks to steal empty cans and fizz bottles. They moved carefully around the platform lights, avoided the obvious wires, and checked corners like trained professionals. Unfortunately for them, I had spent the previous afternoon drinking goblin trap scents until my teeth vibrated. The obvious wires were decoration. The real trap was the floor. Every third tile had a tiny slime bubble underneath it. Step on one, and it would not explode. Explosions were loud and wasteful. Instead, the bubble whispered. The first intruder stepped on a tile. A tiny voice from under his boot said, "Left foot." He froze. The second intruder stepped forward. Another tile whispered, "Bad haircut." The third whispered, "Knife guy." One by one, the tiles began identifying them in the dark. They panicked. That made them step on more tiles. Soon the whole platform was whispering insults. Cheap mask. Sweaty gloves. Stolen boots. Pocket snacks. The intruders lost all stealth in 6 seconds. I dropped from the ceiling behind them in slime body form, stretched my mouth too wide, and whispered, "Welcome to customer service." One screamed and threw a knife at my face. I let it sink into slime, pulled it out, and handed it back handle first. Try again after apologizing. They attacked. Perfect. I used bubble armor without drinking the full can, just enough to wrap the platform in wobbling spheres. Every punch bounced back. Every kick launched the attacker into another attacker. One man swung a club, hit a bubble, ricocheted into the snack stand, and became the first person in history defeated by expired crackers. I did not even need Dragon Flame. I used ghost phasing to let their weapons pass through me, spider thread to tie their sleeves together, pressure step to bounce between them, and slime fingers to slap warning labels on their backs that Selene had printed as a joke. Caution, thief in motion. By the time Dylan woke up, 9 intruders were hanging upside down from the platform ceiling, wrapped in thread and quietly rotating. Dylan blinked at them. Did I sleep through a fight? Barely a fight. One intruder groaned, monster. I looked up. That is rude. Monsters usually have better timing. We turned them over to the city jail before breakfast. No one knew which guild had sent them. They refused to talk. That was fine. I did not need a confession. I had smell tracking. Their clothes carried the same incense Parker had started wearing after joining a new crew. Sharp, bitter, pretending to be expensive. I followed the scent across the city after sunset, over rooftops, through broken apartments, around a market where people sold glowing beetle shells, and into the ruins of an old theater. The theater had once hosted musicals. Now it hosted idiots. Dozens of armed people gathered in the seats, while Parker stood on the stage under a cracked spotlight. Behind him, crates of stolen cores glittered like ugly stars. A huge map of the city was painted on the back wall, with my station circled in red. I crouched in the balcony shadows and listened. Parker was not alone anymore. He had gathered every angry, greedy, humiliated person who hated that a weak guy had become useful without asking permission. He promised them the vending machine. He promised them the cores. He promised them they would take control of the station before the city realized what was happening. Then he said my name like it tasted bad. Oliver. I almost raised my hand and said present. But patience is important. Also, I had a better entrance planned. On the stage below, Parker kicked a crate. He is not strong. He is a trickster. Tricks break when real force hits them. That line almost moved me. Not emotionally. Physically, I nearly fell off the balcony laughing. Tricks do not break when force hits them. They redirect force into someone's groin. I crawled backward through the balcony wall using ghost phase, slipped into the theater's old rigging room, and found exactly what I hoped was there. Ropes, sandbags, curtains, a rusted rain machine, a broken moon prop. The universe had handed me a stage. I was not going to waste it. I spent the next 10 minutes preparing, while Parker continued being inspiring in the worst direction. I laced spider thread through the curtains, filled sandbags with diluted slime fizz, connected the rain machine to 3 pressure step cans, and tied the moon prop to a wolf scent lure made from old socks and monster musk. Then I walked onto the stage from the side, like I had been invited. Parker stopped mid-sentence. Every head turned. I waved, sorry I am late. The roof entrance had dust. Chaos erupted. People drew weapons. Parker's face went white, then red, which meant his brain was sprinting but had nowhere to go. Kill him, he shouted. There it was. Clear enough for the guards waiting outside to hear through the ghost can I had left near the door. I smiled. The first attacker lunged. I pulled one thread. The curtain dropped, wrapped around him, and inflated with slime fizz. He bounced across the stage like a furious pillow. 3 others slipped on pressure bubbles from the rain machine, launched upward, and got caught in the rigging by spider thread. Someone threw a spear. I phased. The spear hit the moon prop. The moon swung down, chased the wolf scent lure, and smashed into the front row. A fake moon had just tackled 6 criminals. I took a bow. Parker charged at me himself with a blade made from monster bone. It glowed green, probably poisoned, definitely dramatic. I let him get close. His swing passed through my ghost shoulder. I stepped behind him and whispered, real force right. Then I tapped his back with a heavy-tied punch can. The effect blasted him forward without breaking anything important. Parker flew across the stage, crashed into the rain machine, and triggered every remaining pressure can at once. The machine exploded upward in a fountain of blue bubbles. For 3 beautiful seconds, every criminal in the theater floated helplessly in the air, spinning slowly under the broken spotlight. The front doors burst open. The guards rushed in. Iris entered with them, sword already drawn, because apparently she had been nearby after receiving my message and did not want to miss the show. The criminals fell from the bubbles one by one and landed in slime nets. Parker hit last, right at my feet. I crouched beside him. He glared up, shaking with rage. You think this makes you better than me? No, I said. The part where I stopped kidnapping, theft, and murder plans makes me better than you. His jaw clenched. I stood and let the guards take him. I wanted to enjoy it more, but when Parker looked back at me from the doorway, I saw something colder than anger in his eyes. He was not done. People like him did not learn from falling. They only searched for higher places to fall from. I was right. 3 days passed, and the city changed faster than I could drink bad ideas in aluminum form. The station was no longer a hiding place. It had become a sideways miracle factory. People trained on platform 2. Dylan repaired old tracks that hummed only when moonlight touched them. Selene turned one corner into a supply counter and somehow convinced people to trade decent food for diluted slime fizz, which meant I ate meat twice in 1 week and briefly considered her a saint. Iris organized patrols around the stairways and came and went, pretending she was only checking security, even though she drank fizz shots with the focus of a person trying to defeat a vending machine through discipline. The cracked machine watched all of it from the wall. It did not speak. It did not explain. But sometimes, when someone weak dodged a trap for the first time or climbed a wall with shaking hands, the screen flickered like it was pleased. I pretended not to notice. I had enough weird relationships in my life without becoming emotionally attached to an appliance. Then the midnight blue machine from the sunken interchange started sending cans through the train. Not many. 1 or 2 at a time, rolling out of the violet train when it arrived at dawn. Pressure step, bubble armor, current dash. The can Dylan stole from me finally revealed its label after he locked it in a box for 48 hours. Temporary title scream, 1 breath. He looked at me over the box. Absolutely not. I looked back at him. 1 breath. 1 breath can still remove a roof. Not if the roof learns humility. He locked the box again. That was rude, but also probably why we still had a ceiling. My compatibility kept rising. Slime body had become permanent enough that I could stretch my fingers across a room. Trap scents lived under my skin like 1,000 tiny alarms. Wolf tracking had become so natural that I could tell who had eaten onions 3 streets away, which was less fun than it sounds. Ghost phase still needed a can for long use, but short flickers were mine now. Spider step came when I wanted it. Dragon flame gathered in my lungs when I got angry, so Dylan made me promise not to argue near curtains. The problem with becoming powerful is that people stop laughing and start measuring. The guild leaders who used to ignore me now sent messengers. I ignored them. Then they sent gifts. Selene opened those. Then they sent threats. I opened those. Most threats were boring. Leave the core trade alone. Stop training unapproved fighters. Hand over the machine. Share the route to the sunken interchange. Typical greedy barking. One threat was different. Came wrapped around a cracked bone core, delivered by a crow with iron feathers. No signature, no name. Just a drawing of the old train station, with a black circle over the entrance, and 1 sentence scratched into leather. Weak things should stay hidden. I held it up in front of the vending machine. The screen flickered. Insert monster core. You have no sense of drama, I told it. It beeped. I inserted the cracked bone core. The machine swallowed it. For once, no can dropped. Instead, the screen filled with static. The lights in the station dimmed. Every empty can on the shelves rattled. The violet train groaned in the tunnel like something had grabbed its wheels. Dylan ran from the control room. What did you put in it? A threatening snack. Oliver. A bone core with an attitude. The vending machine spat sparks. Its cracked screen flashed a label I had never seen before. Contaminated route marker. Then another line. Nest beacon detected. The bone core had not been a message. It had been bait. From far above us, through concrete, steel, and layers of ruined city, I heard screaming. Not humans screaming. Monster screaming. A lot of it. I ran up the stairs so fast Spider step cracked the tiles behind me. The sky over the city had turned gray, and not from clouds. Thousands of ash-colored birds circled above the rooftops. They had skull faces, ember eyes, and wings that shed burning dust. Each one was small, maybe the size of a cat, but together they moved like a storm with teeth. Below them, people shouted and ran. A market stall burst into flame. A guard tower bell rang. On the far side of the city, the jail alarm sounded. My stomach dropped. Parker. The ashbirds were not attacking randomly. Their flock twisted downward in spirals, striking streets near the jail, the gate, and the station entrance. 3 places, 3 pressure points. Whoever sent the bone core knew exactly what would spread panic fastest. Selene appeared beside me, breathless. Please say you have a ridiculous plan. I have 5. Good, use the one least likely to burn my merchandise. No promises. I shoved a bubble armor can into her hand. Get everyone underground. Dylan keeps the station sealed. The trainees hold the stairs. Iris protects the jail if she is close enough. Selene narrowed her eyes. And you? I looked up at the storm of skull birds. I am going to make weather regret having wings. I drank Spider Step, Pressure Step, and Dragon Flame in that order, a terrible mix. Dylan would have tackled me if he were there. My legs filled with blue pressure ripples. My lungs became a furnace. Threads snapped from my fingers and caught on rooftops. I launched myself upward. The first flock dived at me. I ran straight into the sky. Pressure Step gave me invisible platforms. Spider Step gave me balance. Slime Body let my joints stretch in ways anatomy teachers would have reported to the city guard. I bounced from air ripple to air ripple, leaving blue rings behind me, while ashbirds shrieked and swarmed. Their burning dust hit my face. Slime skin absorbed it. Their beaks stabbed at my arms. Ghost flickers made them miss. I opened my mouth and breathed dragon fire upward in a twisting spiral. The flame did not just burn, it scared. The birds split around it, and that was what I needed. I threw both arms wide, turned my slime fingers into dozens of thin whips, and snapped spider thread through the flock. Not to cut them, to connect them. Every bird I touched became tied to 3 more. The flock tried to scatter, and the threads pulled tight. Suddenly, the perfect storm became a tangled ball of angry feathers. I kicked off a pressure platform and dove through the center. Temporary tidal scream, I whispered. I pulled the forbidden can from inside my coat. Yes, I had stolen it back from Dylan. Yes, that was irresponsible. No, I did not feel bad. I popped the tab. The soda tasted like swallowing an ocean that hated walls. My chest expanded. For one breath, the entire city went silent. Then I screamed. A wave of compressed blue force erupted from my mouth, not sound exactly, but the idea of sound getting revenge. It hit the tangled ashbirds and blasted them upward like a burning umbrella turned inside out. Windows shook, rooftop dust vanished. 3 old billboards collapsed from embarrassment. The flock rose above the city in one giant knot. I chased it. At the highest point, I drank ghost soda and phased into the center of the bird knot. Their hot bodies passed through me. Their cores glittered all around like sparks inside charcoal. I snapped one slime hand outward and absorbed the loose core energy, not enough to kill every bird, but enough to drain their ember wings. They stopped burning. The whole flock became a rain of confused gray chickens. They fell. I used bubble armor to catch them in giant wobbling spheres before they hit the streets. Hundreds of skull-faced birds bounced across rooftops, bumping into chimneys and each other. People who had been screaming seconds ago stared up in stunned silence as monster birds rolled overhead like cursed parade balloons. Then the cheering started. It rolled across the city louder than the jail alarm. I landed on a rooftop, knees shaking from the tidal scream. My throat felt like I had gargled broken glass and thunder. Worth it. Then wolf tracking hit me with a scent from the jail. Smoke, iron, Parker, and something else. A boss core. I ran. The jail had not fallen, but the outer wall was cracked. Guards fought ashbirds in the yard. Prisoners yelled from windows. Iris stood at the front gate with her sword drawn, cutting through monsters so cleanly their ashes fell in 2 neat piles. Parker was in the yard. Not escaping. Waiting. He stood beside an open transport cage, holding a black boss core wrapped in chains. His face looked thinner, sharper, like jealousy had been feeding on him from inside. Round him, a few criminals in torn prison clothes held guards hostage. I landed on the wall above him. Parker looked up and smiled. That smile bothered me more than his shouting ever had. You came, he said. My voice came out rough from the tidal scream. You sent birds to get my attention, very needy. He lifted the boss core. The air around it bent, not like heat, like fear. Iris glanced up at me, and for once she looked uncertain. Parker saw that and enjoyed it. This came from under the eastern pit. They said nobody could use it. They said even strong hunters broke when they touched it. Then maybe put it down before your personality gets worse. His smile vanished. There it is, he snapped. Jokes, tricks, drinks, you never fight straight. I win straight. You hide behind weirdness. I weaponize weirdness. There is a difference. One of the criminals pressed a blade closer to a guard's throat. Parker raised the chained core higher. Come down, no tricks, no cans, no phasing. Fight me with strength or they die. The yard went quiet. I looked at the hostages. I looked at Parker. Then I looked at Iris. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She knew I was absolutely going to cheat. I raised both hands and dropped from the wall, landing in the yard without drawing a can. Parker's expression lit with triumph. That was his mistake. People like Parker think tricks are objects, cans, threads, hidden wires. They do not understand the best tricks happen before the demand is made. Before landing, I had already flicked microscopic slime threads across the yard. One touched each hostage's sleeve. One touched each criminal's ankle. One touched Iris's sword guard. One touched the chain around Parker's boss core. He saw empty hands. I saw a whole yard full of handles. Parker lunged. He was stronger than before. The boss core fed black energy into his arms, making his veins glow. His first punch cracked the ground where I had been standing. I stepped aside without spider step. Just practice. His second punch grazed my shoulder. Pain flashed down my arm. Real pain, enough to remind me that clever did not mean invincible. He laughed. There, you feel that? Yes, I said. It feels like someone emotionally unstable hit me with a brick. He attacked again. I dodged badly on purpose. His fist clipped my ribs. I rolled across the yard coughing. The criminals cheered. Parker advanced, soaking in their noise. I let him. Every step he took wrapped more of my invisible slime thread around his ankle. He grabbed me by the collar and lifted me. No vending machine now, he said. I smiled through blood on my lip. You still think the vending machine is my power. Then I pulled every thread. The yard exploded into motion. Hostages flew backward, yanked safely behind Iris. Criminals flipped upside down, ankles snapped into slime loops. Iris's sword flashed once, cutting their weapons out of their hands. The chain around Parker's boss core tightened around his wrist and dragged his arm sideways. He roared and tried to crush the core against his chest. Too late. I ghost flickered one hand through the chain, grabbed the core, and phased it halfway out of his grip. Parker panicked and pulled back. Exactly what I wanted. The core tore free, bounced off my slime palm, and flew into the air. I opened my mouth. Dragon flame surged. But I did not burn Parker. I burned the chain. The metal snapped, the boss core dropped. I caught it with slime, spun, and threw it straight up. Parker screamed and jumped after it. That gave me a clear shot. I drank pressure step and kicked the air beneath him. Blue ripple slammed him sideways into a bubble armor sphere I had planted before the fight. He bounced off, hit another bubble, then another, ricocheting around the jail yard like a furious pinball. Every bounce drained a little black energy from his arms into the bubble's surface. The watching prisoners slowly stopped cheering. Parker bounced one final time and landed face first in a slime net. The boss core fell. I caught it. It was cold. Not normal cold, grave cold. It pulsed against my palm, and for a second I saw a vast dark tunnel full of chain doors. The vending machine in my mind seemed to hum. Not the real machine. A memory of it. A craving. I wanted to insert the core so badly my teeth hurt. Iris stepped beside me. Oliver. I know. You are smiling. I know that too. Parker lifted his head from the net. You cannot use that. It will break you. I looked down at him. You keep saying things cannot be done right before I do them. At some point, this becomes encouragement. Guards dragged him away, this time with slime cuffs, chain cuffs, and Iris walking behind them to discourage creativity. The prisoners who had helped him were locked in separate cells. The hostages were safe. The ash birds had been trapped in bubble spheres and rolled into monster pens outside the city like smoky beach balls. The city survived, but the boss core remained in my hand. By sunset, I was back in the station. Everyone stared at the core on the platform floor. Dylan had 3 layers of tools around it. Selene stood behind him, pretending she was not hiding behind him. Iris kept her weapon ready and watched me instead of the core, which was fair because I was definitely the bigger risk. The vending machine's screen flickered. Insert boss core. Dylan pointed his wrench at it. No. The machine beeped. Dylan pointed harder. Do not beep at me. I crouched in front of the core. We need whatever this makes. Iris shook her head. We just stopped a city attack. Because the attack was sloppy. Selene frowned. Sloppy almost burned half my stock. Exactly, whoever sent that bone core had more than birds. They knew the station. They knew the jail. They knew Parker well enough to use him as a spark. I looked at the vending machine. They will try again. I hated saying it. I hated sounding serious. Serious people always seemed like they were one bad day from wearing capes indoors, but the truth sat on the platform like a black egg. We had won today because I was faster, stranger, and more prepared. Tomorrow might bring something that treated all 3 as snacks. The machine waited. Dylan lowered his wrench. If you drink what comes out, you do it with all of us ready to knock you unconscious. I appreciate friendship. That was a threat. Friendship with tools. I picked up the boss core. The moment I touched the machine slot, the station lights died. Every platform vanished into darkness except the cracked screen. The core slid in. The machine did not rattle. It did not hum. It went perfectly still. Then the whole front panel opened like a mouse. Inside was not a can. Inside was a black capsule, smaller than my thumb, with a silver pull tab and a label burned into the metal. Forbidden skill capsule, temporary vending domain, 1 minute. Under it in smaller letters was a second line. Compatibility unknown. Selene whispered, "That sounds expensive and fatal." I picked it up. The capsule was weightless. A minute. All my biggest changes had started as minutes. 10 minutes of slime body, 5 minutes of pressure step, 30 seconds of conductor blink, 1 breath of tidal scream. A minute was plenty of time to ruin someone's confidence. I did not drink it that night. That surprised everyone, including me. Instead, I trained. For 7 days, I became the station's worst problem. I ran along ceilings until spider step stopped feeling like a skill and started feeling like an opinion. I phased through walls until ghost flickers lasted a full heartbeat without a can. I let Dylan drop sandbags, swing pipes, release spring traps, and once launch a bucket of paint at my face because he said real danger comes in many textures. I tracked Selene through the market by scent alone, which she turned into a betting game and somehow made money from people wagering how long it would take me to find her. Iris fought me every morning and every evening until my body and soul apologized. Between sessions, I drank repeated skill sodas in tiny controlled amounts. Compatibility rose. Slime body became mine. Trap sense became mine. Wolf tracking became mine. Thread step became mine. Pressure step began to answer when I stamped hard enough. Bubble armor formed around my hands like soap glass gauntlets. Dragon flame curled in my chest, waiting. I was not stacking powers anymore. I was becoming a ridiculous vending machine disaster with legs. And the city watched. People who had once mocked me now stepped aside when I walked through the market. Kids followed me on rooftops until their parents yelled. Weak fighters trained with fizz shots and started patrolling streets that used to belong to gangs. Monster cores that people dismissed as low-grade were brought to the station in baskets. Every useless thing became a possible tool. The old order did not collapse with a speech. It cracked every time someone weak survived. On the 8th night, the next attack came. It began with silence. No birds. No alarms. No shouting. Just silence falling over the city so completely that even my wolf hearing felt wrapped in cloth. I was on platform 3, balancing on one finger in slime body, while Dylan timed me with a broken watch. The station lights turned white. Not yellow. Not violet. White. The vending machine screen flashed. Incoming hollow stampede. Then the ground above us cracked. A roar rolled through the city, low and empty, like 1,000 barrels being dragged across stone. We ran outside. The streets were full of holes. Perfect circles had opened in the road, in walls, through rooftops, even in the sides of guard towers. From each hole climbed a hollow beast. They looked like wolves made of pale clay, but their bodies were missing chunks, as if someone had scooped pieces out and forgotten to fill them back in. Their eyes were empty rings. Their mouths made no sound. That was the worst part. Hundreds of monsters poured into the city without a single howl. People could not hear them coming. But I could smell them. Dry clay. Rotten airs. The same bitter incense from the threats. The real enemy still hid somewhere, sending monsters through holes, testing our defenses without showing a face. Fine. I loved tests. Especially when I could grade them with fire. Iris moved to rally guards, then dashed toward the densest group. Dylan ran back to wake the station trainees. Selene grabbed fizz bottles and began throwing them to people from the stairway like a merchant goddess of questionable safety. I climbed a clock tower in 3 jumps and looked over the city. Hollow beasts were not random. They flowed toward 4 places: the water tanks, the medicine hall, the jail, and the station. Again with pressure points. Again with fear. This hidden enemy was clever. I hated that. Being clever was my thing. I pressed both palms together and formed a slime lens between them. Then I breathed dragon flame through it, not as a blast, but as a signal. A thin orange beam shot into the sky and burst into a glowing spiral. Everyone who had trained at the station knew what that meant. Move to high ground. Use fizz shots. Do not fight alone. Across the city, tiny lights answered. People drank diluted spider step and climbed walls. Others used bubble fizz to block doors. Old women threw trap-sense powder across alleys. Kids pulled ropes Dylan had helped install between buildings. The hollow beasts reached the market first. I dropped from the tower. Halfway down, I activated pressure step and bounced sideways through an alley. A beast leaped from a wall hole toward a shopkeeper. I stretched one slime arm, grabbed its back leg, and swung it into two more beasts. Their clay bodies cracked, but the missing holes in them sucked in the broken pieces and repaired. Regeneration. Annoying. I drank ghost soda and phased my hand into one beast's chest. No core, just a hollow space pulling at my fingers. The core was not inside them. They were puppets without strings. Somewhere else, something was feeding them shape. I smiled. That meant I did not have to defeat hundreds. I had to find one cowardly source. Wolf tracking fought through the rotten clay scent. Underneath it was a trail, faint but steady, leading down. Not to the streets. To the old sewer tunnels under the city. Of course. Villains loved underground spaces. It made them feel mysterious. Mostly it made them damp. I shouted for Iris to hold the surface, then dove into the nearest hole before anyone could stop me. The tunnel swallowed me. I slid down a clay tube, using slime body to keep from breaking my elbows, and landed knee-deep in cold black water. The smell hit so hard my wolf nose tried to resign. I gagged, drank bubble armor just around my head, and created a clean air sphere. Better. The sewer stretched in three directions. Hollow beasts crawled along the walls, ignoring me as they climbed toward the surface. They were not guarding the source. They were deliveries. I followed the scent. Trap Sense screamed 2 steps before the floor opened. I jumped. A mouth the size of a cart snapped shut under me. Not a beast. A trap made from clay teeth built into the tunnel itself. Cute. I landed on the ceiling with spider step and kept running upside down. The sewer tried again. Teeth from the left, spikes from the right, a clay hand from the wall. I dodged, phased, bounced, and laughed louder each time. You are making the tunnel attack me, I shouted into the dark. That is not scary. That is interior design with anger issues. The tunnel shook. Good. Something heard me. I reached a round chamber under the city center. In the middle stood a giant clay heart suspended by root-like cords. It beat slowly, and each beat pushed new hollow beasts through holes in the walls. The heart had no face, no voice, no dramatic speech, just a boss core embedded in its center, surrounded by layers of wet clay. Finally, a monster that understood efficiency. I landed in front of it and immediately jumped backward as the floor became spears. Trap Sense covered my vision in red lines. Every surface wanted to stab me. The heart beat faster. Hollow beasts turned toward me. I cracked my neck. 1 minute, I whispered. The black capsule sat in my pocket. I had planned to save it for the hidden enemy. But the hidden enemy was not here, and the city above was drowning in silent monsters. Sometimes saving the best move for later is just a fancy way to lose now. I pulled the capsule. The clay heart reacted. Every beast lunged at once. I popped the tab with my teeth. The capsule dissolved on my tongue. It did not taste like soda. It tasted like a door opening inside my bones. Temporary vending domain activated. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the sewer became my station. Not literally, the walls stayed wet and disgusting. The water still smelled like history's armpit, but glowing vending slots appeared in the air around me, dozens of them floating at different heights. Each slot held a skill made from every core I had ever fed the machine. Slime, goblin, wolf, ghost, spider, dragon, pressure, bubble, current, tidal, and several I had never seen before, generated from combinations my body understood, but my hands had never mixed. The domain did not give me one skill. It turned the battlefield into a vending machine. A hollow beast leaped. I punched the air slot beside me. A can fired out like a bullet and smashed into its face. Temporary slime mine. The beast inflated into a blue blob and bounced off the ceiling. Another came from behind. I kicked a slot. Temporary wolf thunder. A shockwave shaped like a howling wolf blasted down the tunnel, knocking beasts into the walls. The clay heart beat harder, sending spears from every side. I spun, struck 3 slots at once, and drank nothing. The cans opened themselves. Bubble armor coated my back. Ghost phase flickered through my ribs. Pressure step launched me between spears. My body became a sequence of bad news. The minute ticked in my mind. 50 seconds. I shot upward using floating slots as stairs. The heart covered itself in clay plates. I needed the boss core exposed. 45 seconds. I triggered current dash, slid around the chamber in a blue streak, and wrapped spider thread around every root cord holding the heart. 40 seconds. The heart pulled the cords tight, trying to crush me between them. I let it. Slime body flattened my torso paper thin. The cords snapped through empty space. I reformed on the other side and shoved a goblin trapkin into the clay wall. Trap sense poured into the chamber itself. Every trap the heart had built suddenly recognized me as the worst possible danger. So they aimed at me. All of them. Perfect. I stood directly in front of the heart. 30 seconds. The floor spear's wall teeth, ceiling hands, and clay beasts lunged at one target. Manhw. I ghost phased. Everything passed through me and hit the heart. The clay plates shattered. The boss core flashed exposed. 20 seconds. I opened a dragon slot. Then a title slot. Then a pressure slot. 3 cans spun in the air, cracked open, and poured into one another, forming a glowing red-blue-black spiral. A new label flashed across it. Temporary steam cannon breath. That sounds healthy, I said. I inhaled. The chamber tried to close around me. 10 seconds. I fired. Steam hotter than dragon flame and heavier than ocean pressure blasted from my mouth in a straight line. Punched through the exposed boss core, through the clay heart, through the chamber wall, and out into the night above the city. For a moment, everyone on the surface saw a pillar of white steam erupt from a street hole and carve the clouds apart. The hollow beasts froze. Then they collapsed into harmless clay piles. The domain ended. The floating slots vanished. I dropped into sewer water face first. Not my coolest landing. But when I crawled out of the hole in the street 5 minutes later, covered in mud, smelling like defeat's basement, and holding the cracked boss core of the clay heart, the entire market square erupted. People cheered from rooftops, guards raised weapons, station trainees waved fizz bottles. Selene looked relieved for 1 second before her merchant instincts returned, and she shouted that anyone taking free clay samples had to pay for containers. Dylan pushed through the crowd and grabbed my shoulders. You used it. I saved the city. You used the forbidden capsule in a sewer. The sewer was available. He looked like he wanted to hug me and strangle me with equal commitment. He settled for hitting the top of my head with a rolled-up towel. I deserved that. Iris arrived last, wiping clay dust from her sword. The surface is clear. Iris nodded. Casualties were light. Training helped. That mattered more than the cheering. People had survived because they were not helpless anymore. The hidden enemy had expected panic. Instead, the city had climbed walls, dodged monsters, shielded doors, and fought back with 10-second miracles. That night, the vending machine accepted the cracked clay boss core. It gave me no capsule. It gave me a plain gray can. Permanent compatibility catalyst. Dylan read the label 3 times. This is either a miracle or the worst thing ever. Selene leaned closer. Can we sell drops of it? No, Dylan and I said together. I took the can. My hands shook. Not from fear exactly. From knowing that a line was about to vanish. Temporary had protected me. Temporary meant I could pretend the power was borrowed. If something went wrong, it was the can's fault, the machine's fault, the world's fault for becoming ridiculous. Permanent meant me. My choice. My body. My consequences. I drank. The soda had no flavor. It was like drinking a question and answering yes. Every skill inside me woke at once. Slime stretched through my muscles, wolf senses sharpened, goblin warnings flickered under my skin, spider balance settled in my bones, ghost cold filled my veins, dragon heat curled around it. Pressure rippled under my feet, bubble armor shimmered at my fingertips, current dash sparked behind my knees, tidal scream rested in my throat like a sleeping whale. For a second, I thought I would split apart. Then the skills stopped fighting. They clicked together. Not neatly. Never neatly. More like a drawer full of knives, deciding to become a chandelier. I breathed out. A ring of tiny vending slots opened around my wrist, then vanished. Dylan saw it. So did everyone else. The machine's screen flickered. Compatibility stabilized. Vending domain, partial permanence. Seleni's eyes went huge. You can summon the cans now. I raised one hand. A tiny slot appeared in the air. A slime can rolled halfway out, fizzing. I pushed it back in and the slot vanished. Only a little, I said. Iris stared. That is not little. I smiled. He was right. But I did not get to celebrate long. The ground shook again. Not from monsters. From the rails. Violet train arrived without being called. Its doors opened, and cold wind rushed through the station. The cracked vending machine went dark. The midnight blue cans on the shelves rattled. Every empty can tilted toward the train, as if listening. On the floor of the train car lay Parker's slime cuff. Broken. Dylan whispered something I will not repeat, because the station had children nearby. I picked up the cuff. It smelled like Parker. And bitter incense. And something new. Ozone. Snow. A burning forest after rain. Selene hugged her ledger to her chest. Please tell me he did not steal a magical train. The train whistle answered from inside the dark tunnel. On the vending machine screen, pale letters appeared one by one. Unauthorized passenger aboard. Then another line. Destination locked. Then a final line. Pursuit drink available. The tray opened. Silver can rolled out, covered in little drawings of doors, rails, claws, and a cartoon face that looked suspiciously like it was laughing at me. Temporary chase conductor, 10 minutes. I picked it up. Iris stepped beside me. He is baiting you. I know. Iris tightened her grip on her weapon. Then we go carefully. Dylan lifted his wrench. No stealing unknown cans from my bag this time. Selene sighed. I am coming because someone has to record the value of whatever terrible place we find. I looked at the four of them. A few months ago, I would have faced this alone because nobody would have followed me into danger unless they were chasing me with a stick. Now they stood beside me before I even asked. That was more dangerous than any skill. It gave me something to lose. The train waited. I popped the silver can. The flavor was cold metal and running footsteps. The doors widened. We boarded. This time I did not sit. The moment the train launched, my partial vending domain flickered around my hands. Tiny slots opened and closed like nervous fireflies. The chase conductor skill painted the air with Parker's trail, a jagged silver line ripping through the violet tunnel. He had not taken the train far. He had taken it wrong. The tunnel walls flashed with broken images, the sunken interchange, the jail yard, the theater stage, the sewer chamber, then places I had never seen, a forest of glass trees, a desert full of sleeping giants. A bridge made from monster bones, stretching over red fog. Parker's trail scraped across all of them like a knife mark. At the front of the car, the driver's cabin door rattled. I opened it. There was no driver. Just a brass control lever, a cracked route map, and a circular slot exactly the size of a can. The route map showed 2 glowing points. One was us. The other was Parker. Between us, the track split into 12 possible lines. Chase conductor whispered in my bones. Choose impact. That was not helpful. Dylan leaned over the map. If these lines are routes, that one is shortest. Selene pointed at another. That one passes through a treasure-looking symbol. Iris pointed at the darkest route. That one avoids the monster skulls. Then she looked at me. Which one is Parker expecting? I smiled. That was the right question. Parker knew I was reckless. He knew I liked dramatic shortcuts. He knew I would chase if he dangled danger in front of me. So he expected the shortest route. Maybe the treasure route if he had learned from Selene. Definitely not the route that looked boring. I pulled a plain slime can from my wrist slot and shoved it into the control panel. The map bubbled. Every line became flexible. Then I grabbed the lever and bent it sideways. Dylan shouted, "That is not how tracks work." It is now. The train screamed. Violet tunnel folded like warm rubber. Instead of choosing one of the 12 routes, we squeezed between them, sliding through the soft space where maps were not finished. Windows filled with colors that had no manners. Gravity turned into a suggestion. Selene floated into the ceiling and used the opportunity to check a luggage rack. Dylan held onto a pole. Iris stood perfectly still, because of course she did. We burst out above a platform made of black snow. The train landed on rails that appeared half a second before the wheels touched. Parker stood at the far end of the platform, staring at a huge iron door covered in monster cores. He turned when we arrived, and his face twisted from confidence into disbelief. "You are early," he said. I stepped off the train, silver can still fizzing in my hand. "I bent the map." Parker looked genuinely offended. "You cannot bend a map." "I can if it is afraid of slime." Behind Parker, the iron door pulsed. Cores covered it from edge to edge. Slime cores, wolf cores, spider cores, ghost cores, dragon fragments, boss cores. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all wired into the metal like a monster core vault had melted into a gate. Bitter incense smoke leaked from the seams. The hidden enemy had not been a person standing in the dark. It was this place. A core furnace. A monster nest built around human greed. Parker had been used, but he had also chosen the path every time. The furnace offered power to anyone hateful enough to open it, and he had run straight here with both arms open. He raised one hand toward the door. This is what real strength looks like. The door answered by driving black wires into his arm. Parker screamed. For a second, I almost moved to save him. Then the wires dragged him backward and lifted him against the door like a living key. Core light flooded his body. The platform shook. Black snow rose upward instead of falling. The door began to open. Dylan grabbed my sleeve. "If that opens fully, I do not know what comes out." "Bad things, I assumed." Selene swallowed. "Can we close it from here?" The door cracked wider. Inside was not a room. It was a vertical tunnel packed with monster cores, all beating like hearts. Every core fed into a shape hanging at the center, a giant mouth made of vending machine parts, bone plates, and black roots. It had no eyes, but I felt it notice me. Not as an enemy. As a customer. My vending machine wrist slots flickered painfully. The furnace wanted my compatibility. It wanted the skills the cracked machine had grown inside me. Parker laughed through the wires. "Now you look scared." "I am," I said. That shut him up for half a second. Fear was useful when it did not hold the steering wheel. I looked at the furnace mouth. Then at the core-covered door. Then at Parker, trapped in the middle of his own bad decision. I could burn it. Too many cores, explosion risk. I could phase in. The furnace wanted that. I could cut Parker free. The door might open faster. I needed to make the furnace attack me in exactly the wrong way. Luckily, evil hungry things were usually easy to bait. I stepped forward and raised my wrist. Tiny vending slots opened around my arm. The furnace mouth twitched. I made a slime can appear, then a ghost can, then a pressure can, letting each one glow bright before pushing them back into nothing. "Hey," I called to the giant mouth, "you want flavors?" The furnace roared. Every core on the door flashed. I grinned. "Come by ones." The furnace fired black root wires toward me. I did not dodge. I let them wrap my arm. Dylan shouted my name. Iris moved, but Dylan held her back because he saw my other hand moving behind my coat. The wires pierced my skin. Pain exploded up my shoulder. The furnace started pulling. My skills flickered. Slime, ghost, wolf, dragon, pressure, all tugged toward the root wires. For one horrifying second, I felt weaker. Then I used my free hand to crush a bubble armor can against the wires. Not around me. Around them. A transparent bubble formed inside the root cluster, trapping the connection. The furnace kept pulling. The bubble stretched. I added pressure step. The trapped pull became a slingshot. The furnace realized the problem too late. I let go. All the force it used to drain me snapped backward through the bubble, amplified by pressure, coated in slime, sharpened by trap sense, and insulted by my personal feelings. The recoil ripped half the black roots off the door. Parker fell, still tangled but no longer lifted. Iris flashed forward and cut him free from the remaining wires. She did not do it gently. He hit the platform and rolled, gasping. The furnace screamed. The iron door tried to close, then open, then close again. Its cores pulsed wildly. Now it was unstable. That was dangerous. Dangerous was workable. I activated Vending, domain partial permanence. This time not a full battlefield, just a ring of 12 slots around me, each one flickering like a candle in a storm. The furnace tried to drain them. I let it taste one. A decoy slime can. Then another. Then 10 more. My new domain could not create unlimited cans, but Slime Body had taught me duplication. Each decoy was mostly empty fizz, a shiny little lie with just enough power to smell real. The furnace swallowed them greedily. Its mouth filled with blue foam. Selene saw what I was doing and laughed. You are feeding it trash soda. Premium trash soda. The furnace gagged. I fed it ghost fizz next. The blue foam turned transparent. Parts of the furnace phased through its own supports. Cores slipped out of alignment. Black roots lost grip. The door sagged. Dylan's eyes widened. It is passing through itself. That sounds uncomfortable. Dylan moved to shield the train. Iris dragged Parker farther from the door and pinned him under one boot when he tried to crawl away. The furnace mouth thrashed, half solid, half ghost, choking on fake cans. Now came the risky part. I needed the cores free without detonating. I opened every slot I could and called pressure step, bubble armor, and spider thread together. The labels blurred. A new conformed in my hand. Temporary core net cascade, 15 seconds. 15 seconds. I loved how all my best ideas came with terrible time limits. I drank. Threads burst from my fingers in every direction, each one tipped with a tiny bubble and pushed by pressure ripples. They shot across the door, wrapped around cores, and cushioned them before pulling. One by one, hundreds of monster cores popped free from the iron gate and floated in bubbles around the platform. The furnace screamed louder. The door weakened. Parker stared from under Iris's boot, eyes wide, watching the power he wanted turn into floating loot around the person he hated. I almost made a joke. Then the furnace bit through the ghost foam and lunged. Its giant mouth tore free from the door, dragging black roots behind it. Without the cores feeding it, it shrank fast, but fast for a giant furnace mouth still meant bigger than a house and extremely rude. It charged straight at me. I had 3 seconds left on core net cascade. I could dodge. If I dodged, it would hit the train. So I did something stupid. I jumped into its mouth. The teeth closed around me. Everything went black. Inside the furnace, voices screamed, not words, hunger, greed. Every core it had eaten left an echo, and all those echoes clawed at me. They tried to pull my skills apart, tried to turn me into another flavor in their collection. I was tired. I was hurt. My wrist slots flickered out one by one. Then I remembered the first slime core. The little pathetic core everyone said was useless. The soda can that gave me 10 minutes of being too weird to die. I laughed in the dark. The furnace hesitated. You really should have started with customer research, I said. Then I became slime. Not partly. Not a hand or an arm. All of me. Permanent slime body flooded every inch of my shape. I expanded through the furnace mouth like blue glue, filling gaps, clogging gears, wrapping roots, plugging vents. The furnace tried to chew, but chewing slime is just making more problems. It tried to drain me, but there was too much surface, too many decoys, too many fizz echoes. I opened a tiny vending slot inside my own slime body. Then another. Then another. I did not summon cans. I summoned empty cans. Hundreds of them. All the empties I had saved, every ridiculous drink I had ever finished, every temporary miracle that had become part of me. The empty cans appeared inside the furnace, rattling, spinning, bouncing, each one carrying a scrap of compatibility. Then I filled them with dragon flame. Not to explode. To heat. The furnace metal softened. I filled them with pressure step. The softened metal stretched. I filled them with bubble armor. The stretched metal inflated. From the outside, Dylan later told me, it looked like the giant furnace mouth suddenly developed cheeks. Then I used tidal scream from inside. One breath. The furnace did not explode. It burped. Massive blue-white shockwave blasted out of its mouth and launched it backward through the iron door, through its own root nest, and into the vertical tunnel. Every core bubble I had freed floated safely in the air as the furnace collapsed into a steaming knot of warped metal and bone. I oozed out onto the platform, reformed into a person, and immediately fell on my back. The black snow stopped rising. The iron door cracked down the middle. Behind it, the tunnel of cores went dark. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Selene walked over, looked down at me and said, "You made a monster burp itself to death." I lifted one thumb, self-defense. Dylan sat on the platform beside me and laughed until he sounded broken. Dylan helped secure the floating cores. Iris kept Parker pinned. Parker did not struggle anymore. He just stared at the ruined furnace with a hollow expression, like he had finally realized power was not the same thing as being chosen. I wanted to say something clever. I did not. He had been cruel, he had been dangerous, he had hurt people, and nearly opened a core furnace under a living city. But at the end, he looked small in a way that reminded me too much of the person I used to be, the person hiding in a train station while everyone laughed. The difference was simple. When I found something strange, I used it to climb. Parker used every chance to drag others down. Iris lifted her boot just enough for him to breathe easier, then tied him with fresh slime cuffs. He goes back, she said. Parker did not argue. He loaded him onto the train with the surviving criminals who had followed his trail and gotten trapped by the furnace's outer roots. We loaded the recovered cores into bubble nets. Selene counted until she got dizzy. Dylan removed the control lever from the black snow platform because he said no place that terrible deserved steering privileges. As the violet train carried us home, the others finally slept. I stayed awake by the window. The tunnel showed me scenes again. But this time they were not memories. They were possibilities. A station in the desert under sleeping giants. A platform inside a glass forest. A vending machine hanging upside down from a bridge over red fog. A city built inside the ribcage of something ancient. So many roots. So many cores. So many flavors waiting to be stolen from monsters and turned into miracles. When we returned, dawn washed over the city. The guards took Parker without celebration. The people welcomed the rescued prisoners and stared at the mountain of recovered cores. Station trainees cheered when the violet train arrived, then cheered louder when they saw me walk off covered in soot, slime, and furnace dust. I raised one hand. A tiny vending slot opened above my palm. A can rolled out. Not temporary. Not a trial. The label shimmered. Core Fizz Craft, personal recipe unlocked. I stared at it. Dylan looked over my shoulder. What does that mean? Selene appeared instantly. It means private label. Iris folded her arms. It means trouble. Iris smiled faintly. It means he is going to drink it. They all knew me too well. I popped the tab. Flavor was everything at once. Slime sweetness, dragon heat, ghost chill, wolf sharpness, spider silk, ocean pressure, bubble fizz, and that first cheap soda taste from the day I stopped being worthless. The station lights flared. Every vending machine shelf filled with empty cans, then full cans, then empty again, cycling like the machine was dreaming. My wrist slots stabilized into a faint silver ring under my skin. The cracked screen flashed one line. Recipe memory awakened. I understood. Not everything. Never everything. But enough. I could make diluted fizz without the machine now. Not the strongest versions, not forbidden capsules, not destination drinks, but starter skills, training flavors. Little impossible sips for people who had been told they did not deserve a chance. I looked at the platform full of weak fighters, old workers, scared kids, tired guards, and people holding monster cores like keys to futures they never expected. For once, nobody laughed. Not at me. Not at them. The city had seen what happened when useless things were fed into the right machine. They came out dangerous. Useful. Alive. Weeks passed after the furnace fell. The city did not become peaceful. Peace was too big a word for streets with monster scratches on the walls and storm birds bouncing in pens outside the gate, but the city became harder to bully. That was enough. The station turned into a training ground, a shelter, a market, and a rumor people whispered with smiles. They called it the platform, just the platform like there had never been any other. If monsters came near the lower tunnels, they vanished into traps and came out wrapped in slime. If thieves entered, whisper tiles announced their worst features before dropping them into bubble pits. If guild toughs tried to intimidate the weak, they found old women with trap scents, kids on spider lines, and shopkeepers who could inflate bubble shields from bottle caps. I did not become king. I did not want a crown, a chair, or anyone asking me to make speeches before breakfast. I became the guy people looked for when the impossible needed someone rude enough to handle it. That suited me. I spent my mornings crafting fizz shots, my afternoons hunting cores, and my nights riding the violet train with whoever was brave enough to come. Sometimes we reached harmless stops full of vending machines, selling dumb flavors like temporary pigeon balance or 10-second soup vision. Sometimes we found monster nests that should have killed us and instead became ingredients. Sometimes Selene found treasure. Sometimes Dylan found machinery. Sometimes Iris found fights she pretended not to enjoy and ways to beat me in sparring, even after I became half vending machine nightmare, which was unfair and probably important for my ego. But the cracked machine still had secrets. One evening, after a hunt in the glass forest where I defeated a tree serpent by making it chase its own tail through pressure bubbles until it tied itself into a decorative knot, I returned to the station with a new core. It was clear. Not white. Clear. You could see through it, but only to places that were not behind it. Dylan refused to touch it. Selene offered to buy it anyway. Iris said it felt like it was staring and told me not to insert it until everyone had slept. I inserted it immediately. The vending machine went silent. Then every light in the station turned violet. The screen flickered. Root memory core accepted. The tray opened. A can rolled out clear as glass with a label that appeared only when I looked away. Temporary future platform glimpse, 5 seconds. Nobody moved. Even Selene did not joke. 5 seconds of future was not a skill. It was a loaded weapon pointed at curiosity. I picked up the can. It felt cold. Dylan whispered, "Oliver, maybe do not." I almost listened. Really? Then the violet train whistle echoed from deep under the station, and the rails hummed with a rhythm I had never heard before. Not arrival. Invitation. I popped the tab. The soda tasted like rain before it falls. For 5 seconds, the world opened. I saw the station, but older. Bigger. Tracks branching in every direction under the city like glowing veins. People training on platforms I had never repaired. Vending machines of different colors standing in a circle. The violet train waiting with its doors open. A map made of light floating above the rails. Then I saw beyond the map. A platform under red fog. A vending machine with a golden crack down its screen. A core the size of a house. And a hand reaching toward it. Not Parker's. Not mine. Someone new. The glimpse ended. I stumbled back, gasping. Everyone rushed toward me. Dylan grabbed my shoulders. What did you see? I looked at the vending machine. The cracked screen now displayed a new route symbol. A bridge. Red fog. A golden can. My wrist slots tingled like they were hungry. I should have been scared. I was scared. Beneath the fear, hotter and brighter, was the same feeling I had when I first held a slime core in front of a broken vending machine and wondered what would happen if I inserted something everyone else ignored. The world was still ending in pieces. Monsters still crawled from cracks. Greedy people still reached for power they did not understand. And somewhere out there, another platform waited with another impossible flavor. I looked at my friends. Dylan already looked tired. Selene already looked rich. Iris already looked ready, and like she had guessed, I was going to say yes before I did. I smiled. A few months ago, I hid from monsters in an abandoned train station because everyone said I was too weak to matter. Now the monsters hid their cores when they smelled me coming. Now evil people checked the ceiling before they made threats. Now every broken machine in the dark had to worry that I might feed it trash and turn it into a weapon. The violet train rolled into the station. The doors opened. The machine screen flickered one final message. Insert curiosity. I laughed softly. That was not a core. That was not a recipe. That was the one thing I had never run out of. I raised my hand, and a ring of tiny vending slots sparked around my wrist. Then I stepped toward the train, ready to see what flavor the next disaster would be.